Hi everyone, my name is Biringkpa Onyeka. I am the host of the podcast Boring Conversations. And today we have someone of great importance to the literary world, particularly to the Nigerian community and to a whole lot of other persons down here. I am talking of no any other person than Ikenna Okeh. He is poet. He is an author of varying degrees and from different locations. His work cuts across different genres and he talks about different events in life. He has written a handful of books, and in amongst his collection you find things like the deportee, the operative. You find things like Rogues of the East. You find his upcoming work, which you will get to know about in a short moment from now. But I would allow him to do justice to himself by also getting to tell us a bit more about himself. And without saying any other thing, welcome, Mr. Ikenna Okeh.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for this opportunity to be on your platform. My name is Ikenna Okeh, and I'm a writer. I've written a number of novels, and I'm here right now in Mexico as the writer in residence at the Africa Center in Mexico. So, and I'm also the director of Puebla International Literature Festival. So, and I'm glad to be here.
Nice to hear that. As it concerns you being the director, we also would have to talk about some other issues as it concerns Africa and the events also that in recent time, in about 4 or 5 months, we saw unfolding also, and it will be an interesting take from there. But you have a new work coming up. It's titled Yahoo Yahoo. I know that particular word as a mailing company, and they have been serving the world well. They had their fallout with Gmail, and many persons don't really know about Yahoo Mail and Hotmail and all that. But uh, are you talking about the history and the times of this particular mailing company, or there's something else to this particular title? Because it's not just one time you used it twice, Yahoo Yahoo. So let's know if you're talking about this company or you plan on talking about something else.
Okay, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But for the benefit of for the benefit of many others who are new to this whole thing. Anyway, every Nigerian understands what Yahoo Yahoo means. Yahoo Yahoo is a term for cyber fraud. Romance scam. I think it got that name from back in the day when it all started in early the 90s. They used to reach out to people via chat rooms on Yahoo Mail chat rooms. Yes, yeah. So that was how the whole thing came about, and the name has stuck, Yahoo Yahoo. And yes, that is how we came by. That is how Nigerians, came by that name, Yahoo
You've
Yahoo.
cleared the air now that you are not actually trying to investigate the history of this particular company, but what Nigeria, what we have used this particular stuff one way or the other to get to do. From which perspective are you going to look at your work? Are you going to look at it from the point of, let's say, glorification? There are many persons who believe, this particular stuff, they're tied down to a thing like, the colonizers came, they stole from us, and now it's our turn to get it back. Or are you looking at it from just how it is in the current situation? Because I am asking this in reference to the book written about Nuhu Ribadu, the first EFCC chairman, which also he tackled this particular issue one way or the other. A Paradise for Maggots.
Yeah.
In that particular work, you get to see how, as early as the East and the late East, a whole lot of issues went down there. And I remember the first time I went to Abuja as a young man, my uncle showed me a building. I had the building of the guy that scammed the Brazilian bank and made the bank get to go bankrupt and stuff like that. It's just right in front of Wuse, I think, zone think zone 5 when you are going towards zone 4, and the building stands there, and it still stands there. It stands there as a confiscated property until now. So without dragging it too much, how are you planning on looking at this? Because the book has already been written. It's not as though it's something you want to do. So we're just waiting for the publication in a few days' time.
Okay, to answer your question, I looked at this from the perspective of the scammer himself, the Yahoo Boy himself. Yes. So I practically stepped into the shoes of a Yahoo Boy, and I'm, seeing the whole thing in his perspective, in his perspective. So it is left to the reader decide if he sees glorification in it, or if he sees some kind of, someone trying to make peace with his world. And the funny thing is this. I believe that there is nothing that might be said there that will be entirely new to a Nigerian. I mean, because everybody has at least one family member who is a scammer, as well as a Nigerian.
Yeah.
At least somebody from the extended family. You have at least one person. Yeah, so it's not entirely something new per se. Every Nigerian will identify something that they can relate with in that book. So whether it is glorification or not, it's more up to the reader to decide.
What a great perspective. So what made you come up with this particular sort of writing this particular book? Because your books and your works get to have very, very catchy titles, and also the content thereof also goes on to talk about the whole situations that people get to find themselves. Take, for instance, whatever happened in Antalya, the whole scenario down there, and you were in Antalya. But before then, you were in Cyprus. And on you leaving Cyprus, we got the deportee. And we had also gotten the operative. And now we are getting this particular work. Your work, at least in the previous one we've had, has come as a way of, checkmating society and checking how things ordinarily are done and how they get to affect us, be it from the angle of colonialism, which is also what your recent work that got published last year also get to talk about slavery. In this particular work, what did you set out to achieve? And at the moment, after the work has already gone through the publishers and editors, what are you setting to achieve in this particular publication?
Okay, I have to be honest with you. I did not set out to change. I did not set out to change the world. I did not set out to change society. I only felt that it is important that I mirror society, like something that is too obvious already that we still take it for granted. Because if you look at Nigeria properly, like if you look at Nigeria closely, you realize that there is an existence of a Yahoo culture in Nigeria. It is evidence in our music. It's evidence in the skits we make. I mean, it's not something that we're shy about. It's not something that we are shy about. It is right there in the open. It's staring everybody in the face. Okay, so almost every popular art forms in Nigeria has treated this issue. Our movies, our skit making, our music. But why are writers? Why is literature shying away from this as well? So I just wanted to do something that I feel that its time has come. Whatever the outcome, I mean, I never set out to achieve it. I just set out to just depict something that is also glaring, in our world.
So it's more or less of the fact that we are going to see in this particular work something like what happened in Leotoso's One Piece, whereby the characters took up the form of like telling their own story from their own perspective. And we're also hoping to, are we finding this in the first person singular or in the omniscient third person singular? Okay.
No, it's not omniscient. It's in the first, yes.
It's set in Nigeria. Definitely cannot be set in Nigeria alone. It has to cut across.
No. It is
without the interference of a male crossing the Atlantic.
Yes. Well, the thing is, one thing everybody will understand. One thing everybody will understand from that book. I mean, from the feedback I've gotten from beta readers, they made me understand that I achieved a great number of things with that book. One of them being that I've been able to make it known that there is, I mean, it is not possible for cyber fraud to be successful without the partnership of people across the Atlantic. That is one. Secondly, anybody who falls for is likely too greedy because they try to prey on your greed for them to be able to scam you. Thirdly, Nigerians are like, if you're looking at the hierarchy of scammers in the world, Nigerians occupy the lowest rungs of the ladder. It's just that we don't care enough about our public image. That is why Nigeria is always in the news for romance scam. So I'm not exactly, anyway. I leave it up to the readers to decide. I'm just saying the same things that I'm not talking about the feedback I got from people who have read the book so far. Yes,
and many persons will find this very, very alarming. The whole idea of the African prince is a thing many persons across the Atlantic get to echo and get to see as though it is a thing that is only tied to a particular race or a particular people. And like you rightly said, the image, the public image also is not something we're really given close attention, because I am not here justifying anything, but I am here concurring with what you said as it concerns we being at the lowest in the rung of the ladder that ordinarily makes for what cartel is, mafia life, gangster. Many persons rank operation in terms of gangster and mafias, very, very high. And I think it's a thing born out of exaggeration sometimes. And Onyeka recently has been receiving one or two from the ex-community as it concerns his Aye Bororo post, and and many persons I come to read from different angles, from someone like James, talking about why he shouldn't have even come to dare talk about that, and why it shouldn't even be talked about. As though if you talk about something, as though if you look at the societal ill, it becomes a problem. And this whole idea of over exaggerating what a situation at the moment is also a thing we ordinarily have to look at. When you look at the events that come up from other countries, you get to also see that there is a dead in a thing like love and empathy from a whole lot of angles. And rightly said by you, take for instance the guy that got scammed by the Nigerian and saw to it that the Brazilian bank got folded. He got promised something. He got promised an increase in wealth without working for that, without ordinarily, just like wealth without enterprise.
Where
You are
without
working for a
enterprise,
bank.
exactly.
The bank is not your own. Somebody reached out to you from spamming and from different ways of getting your email, and then you are all of a sudden so agitated. They ask you for the first installment of money, you get to pay. They ask you for the second installment, you get to put in, and then you don't even do your own due diligence in terms of wanting to find out what the problem and the situations are, and then you just send the money hoping that things get to change. And people think probably this happened, in the 80s, in the 90s. No, it's happening in our time. It's happening today, whereby what Osofia sang in his 2004, 2005 hit track, Oyibo Man, I Go Chop Your Dollar, is still happening right before us down here. And the intention of wanting to use the person, be it the boy or the girl, is also a thing to be looked at. But we leave that also, like we said, to the viewers to get to decide ordinarily how to go. But at the heart of the Yahoo Yahoo scam, do you think government policies and the ways in which life is currently interpreted in Nigeria also is contributing to this? Or do you think this is just ingrained in the Nigerian family, whereby at least one extended family member gets to do this?
I talked about this in the book as well because I involved the government and the law enforcement. But also, let me talk about it. I do not believe that it is inherent in anybody to be a scammer or any groups of people. I don't think so. We are human beings, and just like every living thing, we respond to stimulus. And the social stimulus in Nigeria is one, that looks as if it is intent on making the poverty and industrial something. They just want to industrialize poverty. That's what it looks like. Because everything seems to work against the enterprising Nigeria. So people have to respond to these things by looking for a way around these whole systems. And now, in our present world, the outlet that readily makes itself available to Nigerians is scam, young Nigerians especially. And now, even in the book, I still talk about it that even the EFCC is not fighting cybercrime. I mean, the rationale behind their current operation is such that they want to have their own share of the Yahoo industry, so as to say. Because they just come, pick Yahoo boys, they get settled for a few millions, and then they let them go. And even two Yahoo boys could have problems. One will go and report one to EFCC. EFCC will come into the matter, arrest one, and once they arrest you, you pay them money, they just let you go. So, because, I mean, how many of these people have they tried to court? Even if they recover this money that they recover from them, who accounts for this money? How does it filter back into society?
Oh, yeah.
You see? So, even the government is very much involved. And government involvement did not start now. It started as far back as in the 80s, even when Osofia was singing about this whole Yahoo Yahoo thing, 419 and all that. Because even in the book, I stated it in the book, that back in the day, people would bring in their clients, so to say, from US and all that. They will get them into the federal ministries. They will have meetings with people inside the federal ministries. They will give them documents and all of that, and then they will scam them. And that is exactly what I was trying to... Actually, at some point in the book, I had to put side by side the scam culture of back in the day and the current time. And why it was not such a thing back in the day was because there was government involvement. So the image of the country was very much protected because of government, because of involvement of certain government
officials.
Officials. So that was actually the thing. That's actually been the thing. And that is the current issue right now. So we're still talking about government involvement, but back in the day it was more organized. But now it is a free for all. Anybody with a laptop and a phone can just do their thing and scam for a few thousands. They will start making noise, and before you know what is happening, or the FBI is in Nigeria making arrests. FBI is in Nigeria extraditing people back to the US and all that. For how much? Maybe a few $1,000s. Meanwhile, we have people in the Philippines having call centers. We're Filipinos in the Philippines having call centers. I mean, making millions of dollars. We have Israelis doing their thing.
Yeah.
We have the Chinese doing their thing. Yeah. We have the Arabs doing their thing as well. It's
just on the idea of call centers. I don't know if you've seen the movie The Beekeeper, and the scenario that plays down there, it's like very, very organized. It got tied down even to the highest apex of the government of such a country, whereby the son of the supposed leader of that mythic country, or if one will even put it that way, happens to be the person ordinarily controlling this cartel and controlling how these things are done. And to take away from what you are saying here also is the fact that if things ordinarily are left to the hands of we as citizens, we as global citizens, to work out things for ourselves, the idea of we not born inherently evil as opposed to we trying to survive also is a thing that ordinarily can see to it that this particular issue is curtailed and these events leave people at least less bestial. Because I look at it from the perspective of someone trying to survive, someone trying to make sense of one's life, and with limited options around him or her, thanks to a thing like the geopolitics, thanks to events that happen in the international community, because this is also a place people don't ordinarily get to look at when they are judging a case of these scams. They look only to the idea and to the life of the scammer. But as opposed to wanting evil or wanting to do wrong or wanting to scam somebody, is the desire to survive, as opposed to just sitting down and I was born probably yesterday or last week, or I was born like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and now I am maybe 8 years, 9 years. I'm thinking of wanting to scam somebody. I don't think it's something that just happens. We also have to look at the policies and the politics in which we find ourselves and where we are now governed. To the idea of the international community and to the way Africa is still being under the shackles of the international community, what do you hope as a writer, as an author, that not just African, but also the world gets to take in terms of coming to look at Africa as an equal, as opposed to looking at Africa as where they currently look at Africa, because also it gets to affect how living and how life gets to go down in a place like the country where we come from, because with the current situation of things, you find it rising inflation. Look at the dollar. The dollar, $1 is higher than the highest denomination of our currency. And it's not in isolation to the fact that Nigerians are lazy. It also has to do with ties to geopolitics. So as a writer, going forward, what do you think the world should do to come to curtail the level of economic divide? Because the divide is so wild that you cannot even imagine. And when a boy sits down with his phone or with his computer, sometimes he sees no way out than this way out.
It's a difficult question because I cannot claim to be well versed in how economies should be run. I can't claim to be well versed, but I think I have paid close attention to the situation enough to realize that it's I've come to observe, I've paid close attention to the situation well enough to understand that Africa has been programmed to be a supplier of cheap labor and cheap mineral resources, right? And some people can argue that it's wrong, it's bad. It might not exactly be bad in itself. Even though we are suppliers of cheap labor and raw materials, we're able to determine the prices of this thing. Okay, that is one option. The people who control these things, what if they were able to make certain concessions that will see, like, how do I put it, so to be able to reduce the level of desperation? Let me give you an instance, because let me just drive home a point. Do you know how many Yahoo boys, how many scammers, how many Nigerian scammers who own hotels, for instance, like 3-4 hotels, but have not been able to leave scamming? Most of them, it is their intention to leave, right? But after investing in things, they realize that the system is so rigged against fair enterprise, right? Now you find out that these hotels are not making it for them because they need to provide their own electricity, they need to provide their own security, they need to provide practically everything for themselves. Still, the government will still be coming to them for taxes. There's no security in the land. You need to pay. You need to get your own security. Pay them. There's no power supply. You need to supply your own power. You spend a lot of money on diesel, and by the time you factor all of these things into the cost of accommodation and all that, you find out that you will run out of customers. So they find out that this is not sustainable. Now they find themselves in the game scamming people. So what I'm trying to say is this: if we are able, if somehow certain concessions can be made to allow African countries, especially Nigeria, to have basic infrastructure that guarantees dignified living, I think this whole desperation would be reduced. Like I told you, this whole thing about the scam culture and all that, it is a symptom of a disease. It's not the disease itself, right? It is the people responding to stimulus. If you give people options, I bet you there will be less scammers in Nigeria. I bet you.
Sure.
I know that for sure. Because for me to be able to write this whole thing, I had to spend a lot of time with these people. I talked to them. Even though they would not want to be acknowledged in the book officially, right? But I met a good number of them. I spoke with them. They told me things. They gave me, I got a lot of feedback from them while writing the book. So I got to learn how they think. I got to understand them and everything. And, that is exactly what made me, over the years, to come to this conclusion.
The system is rigged against the common man. The system is so rigged that
it's rigged against free enterprise.
So rigged that sometimes when you look at the situation, there's almost no way out. And in as much as there's no way out, you just hang on to where you hang on and you get to go down there. If we are to take a detour from here, what is in the particular style you've chosen to write from? This way of writing that looks as though one is reading the works of Homer, what has come to be called the Homeric style of writing, whereby if one is invested in Greek mythology, one would ordinarily think, you don't want to do this comparison of saying, one is the new Homer, or the same way Obioma got the backlash when his last publication he was considered the right hand son of Achebe, and
that's Achebe
didn't get to like that. But
right,
why did you choose that style of writing, and how has that been working for you?
First of all, before I get to that, I have no problems for comparing new writers, to the greats, because I mean those are the greats, and they have to be immortalized. They have to be respected. So I have no problems with that. In fact, as a matter of fact, I'm for that.
If you look at, before we go to you answering the question, if you look at what Achebe said when Chimamanda came on the stage, you get to see that it helped her, set her at a different pace. He said, for such a young woman, Adichie came almost fully prepared, and nobody saw any problem with that. And if Obioma is getting the flowers he's getting, you guys were in Cyprus together, and he has moved to the US. I'm not saying you guys were like living together. I'm just like, he also happened to have shared the same antecedents with you of finding himself, and he goes on to say he found himself in the wrong Cyprus, and we'll come back to the idea of the wrong Cyprus. So in that bit, but yeah, people should not be scared of being compared to those gone before them and stuff like that. But back to the question, did you sit down to think about that I want to start writing this way, or it's the way you've been writing? Because if you look at the snippets that is the work you put on a place like Facebook, and there's barely any time you posted something that I've not seen it, gone through it, and I'm like, wow. So it's like, this is the way you've been doing this, or it's something that is born out of you being a scientist?
Okay, as for my Facebook post, I just say whatever it is. Sometimes I write and I see some errors, but that's it. But when it comes to writing, actually, when it comes to writing formally, writing, be it a book, a novel or a play or anything, the story determines a style suitable for it. Because when I wrote something that was compared to Homer, that was said to be Homeric, right? That was when I wrote It to Twist. Yeah, but I published it in December 2017.
Where that particular comparison came from.
That was when I wrote. Yes. So, and it was Roger Darcy. He's a country musician from England. Yeah, he was the one who said this is very much Homeric. So he was the one who made that for the first time and it stuck. So, and not only himself, there's also a professor I met. In Cyprus who said the same thing too about my work. So I did that with a to twist, and I did that with an eye for an eye. And because these are narrative verses, I just wrote a complete work in poetic form. So I decided to do something like that. I just decided that, okay, let me try something like this. So let me tell a story.
Yeah.
Using these formats and see how well it will come out. So it came out very well, and everybody looking across it loved it. And I'm actually talking about the Spanish translation. I have a Mexican publisher for that book. It's being translated into Spanish and will be published in
Wow.
Mexico only this year.
It also calls to mind Robes of the East and the French translation and how that came out there and how that worked. What are the challenges you faced as a Nigerian who came to the art when you did, and how have you been able to like interact with the world? Because shortly, like a few months back, you had a conversation with Onyeka Nwelue, and you guys talked about the problem with publishing, and he talked about pushing one's work by authors self as opposed to almost like waiting for the publisher to get to do this. And he said this within the framework of the question you asked concerning African publishing. We've seen a whole lot come out from African publishing. I'm working on a documentary on the African Writer series, every work down there, and it's been very expensive to come across like the books at the moment. And just going through the history and the difficulties that saw to someone like Adewale taking over in the 90s. And
sorry to cut you. Sorry to cut the show. I think you if you can reach out to Onyeka Nwelue because I think he has the rights to the African Writer series currently. James Corey himself sold him the rights, if I'm not mistaken. So he owns the right to all the catalogs, yes, under the African Writer series. Yeah, so he might be able to offer you any help you need.
I really appreciate the suggestion down there. Back to the stuff I was talking about is the whole idea of the difficulty in terms of publication. You know, when Hanema had problems in the 70s and the 80s, they reduced their publication drastically, and at the point they were publishing one, at the point they were publishing two, and I think it folded up in 2007 when they said, okay, we're not getting new titles. And we've seen a whole lot of persons come out from that particular world. We've seen Godima come out there. We've seen different persons get to win a whole lot of awards down there. The last African to win the Nobel Prize actually had great ties to do with the publication down there. What have been your what have been the challenges you've experienced in terms of publishing? And now you've gotten a stable publisher and all your publication is coming from here. Walk us through how you started publishing, and did you go by self-publication or were you relying on some publishers? Did you have issues with them and concerns like that?
Okay. Let me try to start from the beginning as possible. I finished my first novel in 2014. It has not been published yet. I titled it A Tale to Twist. Sorry, A Fistful of Sand. So that was my first novel. And it is as bulky as 95,000 words. You know. So I met Ella Alfred, Ella Awakatama.
Okay.
She goes by Ella Awakatama right now, but as a time she was Ella Alfred. Yeah. So I met her in Port Harcourt during the World Book Capital. When Port Harcourt was given the title in October 2010, I met her because I was one of the 13 emerging writers that qualified for the King Prize Short Story Surgery. Yeah. So I met her and we talked, and I met Abubakar and Ibrahim as well. They told me about my work and everything, and they gave me some ideas that they could give me then with regards to publishing and all that. Okay, so I reached out to a lot of publishers all over Nigeria, like practically all the known publishers in Nigeria, and of course there are very few of them. I reached out to agents in the US, everywhere, and the only person who actually got back to me was a publisher in Canada. I can't remember the name. Who told me that they would have considered me even if I were a landed immigrant in Canada.
Again, so
I realized then that my choices.
If I
were a landed immigrant in Canada, like even if I was just in Canada, even on a visitor visa, that they would have considered me, but maybe from Nigeria and all that. No, they wouldn't.
Was the reason tied to the fact that audience would not come, or was it tied to just their policy?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, for what I know now, I can say that. Well, I don't blame them. You know, publishing is business, so it's business, because they have to factor in promotion, publicity, and all of that. And of course, I was very much unknown then, so it makes a lot of sense. So I then, from the frustration, I got the inspiration to write Roads of the East. Because Roads of the East is about a Nigerian writer who is trying to get his works published. And nobody was taking him seriously. So he decided to self-publish, but he doesn't have any money. He met somebody who is wealthy and gives him, I gave him a deal that if you can look for my missing son for me, yes, without getting the police involved and all that, I'm going to give you the money you need.
Yeah.
That's where the whole thing started from. The whole conflict, yes. So I was inspired to write that and after writing Roads of the East, I still didn't get a publisher. So I then decided that, okay, let me try to make Roads of the East into a series. So I wrote the next book again, The Next Man on the List, which is actually a photo of Roads of the East. Same characters, same condition of the story and all of that.
Sure.
Of course, that has not been published yet. So I wrote that, no publisher as well. Then I wrote The Operative.
Yeah.
I wrote The Operative and partnered with Oche Books. I partnered with them. And then I published it. And it was.
I got to know about it.
It was quite successful.
So probably, I think
your Operative was quite successful
because I got to know about it. So if I saw the book, then I think it was published.
Yes, even though I have to be honest with you, I didn't do much publicity on it. I didn't do any publicity on it actually. I never did, right? But it's so that that was when I newly traveled to Cyprus, so I wasn't on ground to do any promotion and all of that. But it sold out. Then after then, okay, after The Operative, I think the next one was I did some children's books then and all of that. I said Mungo, I partnered with Onyeka Nwelue on that. I did Then I did 2 other children's books, and then in 2022, in 2021 I got a publisher, a stable publisher, Bitmark Publishing. That was the first time it was published in the UK with the Botty. Yeah, so with what happened with the Botty, Bitmark Publishing is such that believes in what I do, so they publish everything that I write. They put in the UK and Nigeria, and elsewhere. So it's with the Botty that I got my first international outing, and I mean it has not been easy. I think the Botty gave me. It was easier for me because, first of all, I took charge of my destiny by publishing myself, right? Because the thing is, we just have to be realistic. As Nigerians, our chances are limited. Yes, because the publishing industry in Nigeria is never the same as you find elsewhere, right? Yeah, because it is like that because we don't have people who see reading and writing as a culture integral to them. Like they don't invest in it because sometimes our people, when it comes to them with investment, if they don't see anything that will give them immediate returns, they don't consider it worth getting into. And I think it is an African thing because that is the reason why we don't invest in media well enough. We don't invest in narrative because if we're people who take our public image, if we're people who take our public image seriously, I mean, it will be evidenced from how we invest in media, how we invest in films, how we invest in books, and every other thing that shapes our narrative. That is why Africa does not have something to match. Africa does not have a media house to match BBC or CNN or Al Jazeera. That is the reason if you sell it to African governments to come together and invest money into a media house that can stand on the same league as Al Jazeera and CNN and all of that, they wouldn't see any sense of what you're saying.
Who published also with a BB man, David Hundenye, has been clamoring for this on his tweet recently. He's like, I am ready and willing to partner with any African government that is interested in building a media presence, because many people, when they think about media presence, they think about the music, and even the music, it's the thing that it still goes by way of self-publishing and by way of a whole lot of things. We also look at that also. I think like Ubuntu FM and what you do down there as a co-founder, but it's a very valid point, and we don't really look at this. We don't take this seriously. The idea of not owning our story. it's been long time ago since Achebe talked about the hunter and the lion and who becomes a historian, and conversations like that. We are more than 10 years away from his death, and more than almost 50 years when he made that. And it's not as if he's the first person who actually said that, but he got it from the culture he found himself, and not ordinarily made it available for us. And in terms of scholarship, now we now attribute it as though he's the one saying it. We have not been our own historians. We've not been the owners of our own history. And for someone like me who research about Europe and stuff like that, and as it concerns global politics and all that, the question many persons get to ask me is, you're an African. Why is it that your interest is more? Why is it that it looks as though your interest is out of your part of the world? I'm like, no. When Joseph Conrad went to Congo, he didn't consult anybody before writing The Heart of Darkness. I visited his home country and I went to where his collections were kept, and I had a conversation with somebody as it concerns Heart of Darkness, and he was like, what do I mean the book was a bad book? I'm like, because the book was a bad book to say that, and it's a book that was made compulsory for them to read as early. I think they still read it compulsorily in their schools down here in Europe, and you begin to see the mind and the way they ordinarily have been able to look at that. And when I shared with him what Achebe had to say about Conrad and all that, he stood in utter disbelief as it concerns what has been sold to him, or if we are to borrow from Chimamanda's The Danger of the Single Story, and how he and many other persons have come to look at Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. They have looked at the book from a very, very positive light. Conrad writes in crazy prose. You cannot doubt that, but it doesn't mean that something beautifully quoted ordinarily is something good. Someone like V.S. Napul would not be said to be free from racism and stuff like that. You get to see it glaringly in his work, as opposed to someone like Jem Coetzee and what he gets to talk in his work. Owning our media is a thing we must look at, and the government has to come into play here. Recently, Candace Owens, the American podcaster, talked about a certain amount of money the FBI pumps into Hollywood to get to see, to eat that particular narrative.
I think it's the CIA, not the FBI. It has to be the CIA.
The CIA, what they get to pump in through the media to get to control a particular narrative, and you get to see how the founders of different media platforms are summoned to their Senate and to get to give them update as it concerns how things are done. TikTok is currently going through its own phase. Recently, Mark has said, "Oh, we are going back to free speech. We are joining the."
Sorry to cut you short. Sorry to cut you short. I was about saying this. You know, there's a way these publishing houses, these publishing industries function, all over the world. It is not always okay. Like for instance, we have people, like the CIA, for instance, who are very much interested in the narrative, in shaping the narrative of not just their own country, but that of other countries. And if you are aware of this, sometime in the 50s, I think right 58 or so, it was rumored that the CIA was behind the funding of people like Achebe and Onyeka and all of that. Yes, because of the garden they had in 1958 at Makerere University, where they brought everybody, all the writers together and all of that. And they suspected that the CIA was the one funding all of these things. And if you look at this whole thing, the CIA is not funded by the US. It's not funded by the US government. They were told to go source for their funds themselves. So I mean, they're very much into drugs, for instance. Like they maintain the international drug routes.
Sure.
It's public knowledge. If you read the Confessions of an Economic Hitman, it's there. It's written plainly, right? So it's not new. It's public knowledge. So the thing is,
nothing by Fawcett. He talked about that also.
Okay. Yes. So you find out that most of these publishing industries, most of these film industries and all of that, they are funded by money, like let me say drug money, for instance. And like if you see the hip hop industry in the US, it's funded by drug money. Hollywood is not funded by government money, right? So this is because, and okay, this dates back in the day, like back then when you had slave traders, if you investing in the
Sure.
you understand? So, but we as a people, as Africans, as Nigerians, that's why I say we don't take art as something that is, like it is not something we take seriously. So that is why even if we steal government money or we steal crude oil or we make money from scam or from drugs or whatever, you see us buying expensive toys to drive on roads that are not vehicle worthy.
Sure.
You understand? We build big mansions that were built without without bearing utility in mind. Because you see the Nigerian architecture, you see that is too much concrete, no thought is given to aeration, no thought is given to illumination.
Sure.
You understand? So we spend money on so much that makes it glaring that there is riches without progress.
Everybody just wants to build a house without ordinarily looking at the plan of a city, the plan of how things ordinarily get to go. I find myself in Czech Republic. I find myself in Belgium. Find myself in Rome. You get to look at the science behind how things ordinarily have been done and how a city has been planned for a very, very long time. I have a friend who studied urban security and urban preservation. And for an African, for the first time, I'm like, what is really your job? And he's like, what he will be doing, and he's sure to get a job, is the fact that he is going to look at what is to be built, where it should be built, and any other thing apart from that will not be accepted. If anybody goes against that, probably by ways of arson or by way of whatever stuff, they come at you, and they come at you hardly. We don't look at the enterprise of how things ordinarily should be done long term. Look at the OB and the whole 911 lorry business that used to be done many years ago. The idea of continuity has been lost on us because sometimes we don't have worthy successors of events like that. You want to compare Arise TV to CNN. It's not a thing that ordinarily will be done there. And if you look at Al Jazeera, it's stated clearly there, it's sponsored by the Qatari government. It's completely placed out there. And it's in and about controlling the narrative. It's in and about controlling how things are done. But as it concerns after publishing a work like yours, the media is also supposed to be involved in terms of like pushing the book out there. How have you been able to push your book out into the world? Because recently you made a tweet that talked about the route your book had to go through before it made its way to Turkey because of the international route and the geopolitics that go down there. With such situations, and just I think was it today or yesterday you made a tweet about the mailing system and how mails ordinarily should get to be looked at as it concerns helping literature and all that. So the question here is how successful have you been able to push your book beyond the publishing house, and what are the challenges you've been facing down there, and what should be done to not just better the situation, but also that of other publishers, that of other writers?
I don't like counting my own success because if it is not, I don't like counting my own success in the light of mass desperation, because if it is, you cannot count it successful until it is something that exists in a community, right? Because the sense of community guarantees sustainability. So I personally spend a lot of money on my own to push my books. Because once my books comes out, there are people I buy some number, like when the book came out, I bought £500 worth of copies first. After getting my own author copies, I bought £500 worth of books and sold it to some people and some organizations and stuff like that. So, and it's something that it's something that still boils down to the fact that whatever it is we're doing, we have to think community, we have to think the industry, right? Because the things I do, the money I spend, some others might not be able to spend it. Some others might not, like they might not have it in them, or they might not have the means to push all of this as to push these things. So that is just how it is. And like I said, I don't like counting my own success against.
Yeah, brother.
I don't like counting it in the light of mass desperation.
Oh, and it's a very good thing also, and a very good outlook you are looking out there, because many of the authors, some artists had the chance of benefiting from their art, or like in terms of popularity and the likes of that, but it's about sustainability, it's about continuity. I don't think when Dostoevsky was writing from Russia, he had someone like me in mind, an African boy who more than 200 years later would come to read his work. Or when Achebe started writing the 50s up until when he did, he probably must have maybe envisaged the fact that people will come to read him, but not that Obinna would be reading him. And thanks to the fact that he took out the time he took out to write the way he went about writing. And I think it's an important thing also to score about the fact that the odds are against us, and our leaders and the different people that see themselves as leaders and those we look up to should ordinarily also come to understand that it is very, very difficult to get to compete with the world at the moment if things ordinarily continue to go down this way. You look at the difficulty in Achebe publishing his first novel, and you saw how even when he went to the UK, the guys that were supposed to type it just dumped it, save for his friend who was going back to the UK for holidays, who actually saw to it that it got back to him, and that was the original copy, and he had almost nothing else, and I had no copy.
And he had no copies, he had no replica.
In his essays, and when he talked about it, he was like, if I had not gotten that copy back, there's nothing that would have made me continue writing, and we almost lost out down there. But moving forward, is there a thing about scientists coming to become novelists and writers? And I say this for a whole lot of reasons. Look at Chinua Achebe, got into study medicine, was in the University of Ibadan. He was also a good student. He had a whole lot of good results, and he was on scholarship. But then he was like, I think I have to shift the target, because probably the gods have mounted me, and if I get to say otherwise, something else will get to happen. Chimamanda Adichie was in the sciences, doing so well, and left for pharmacy, and then also left for writing. Was there an urge in you to also see that you get to keep stands, or you are still a practicing scientist? And I say this because of your background in the sciences. Did you feel this point to become a writer, or it's something you've always known that you would do, because you said you took your destiny in your own hands, and is the best thing anybody really would want to do in the 21st century, taking things by your own hand, because there's nobody coming to save anybody anywhere, as opposed to this idea of we having this mythic idea that the ship one day will come, and then the savior will come out of it, and then everybody will be saved, and everywhere will be enjoyment, and Nigeria and Ghana will stop fighting about jollof rice. Did you have the same push these persons had to, shift from the sciences to the arts, or it's something you've always known that you would do?
Okay, I may not be able to speak for others, but because I've noticed the trend, with Sypmtom, Chimamanda Adichie, Chinua Achebe, a whole lot of us, even Chukwumerije as well. Chukwumerije did biochemistry. Ikenna himself did biochemistry.
J.M. Coetzee also was a scientist. I mean, J.M. Coetzee also, the Australian South African writer, which is a place I would ordinarily like to take off from, also was tied up in the sciences. I'm talking about taking off from as it concerns him being Australian and him being South African. I think I would like us to look into in a short period of time. But back to you trying to answer about your call.
Yeah, let me start from there. Okay. I was 11 years and Onyeka was 12 years
Seminary.
when we searched school, right? Yes. And I read something he had written. And then I wrote something similar and showed it to him. When he read it, he told me that I should start considering, a career in writing. And I told him that I've never thought about it. I've never seen myself as a writer. That I wanted to be a
Onyeka
doctor.
was telling you to.
Yes.
Yeah, because I
Yes,
know
he
his
was
story.
telling me
I
that.
know how. Okay, sorry. I
So
know his story. I know how he found his way to Lagos and what he went to do at beautiful Nubia's.
Yes. 12, he already knew what he wanted because he in as much as he loved reading, he already he loved reading. He wanted to be like Wole Soyinka and all of them, but then discovered that he was related to Flora Nwapa. So that was the decisive. In fact, that was the deciding factor for him that it runs in his blood, and so it is his destiny. And I saw it that he was trying to impose that on me, and I was like, no. And that was, I started distancing myself a little bit from him and talks about it. As much as I loved reading, he gave me, but whenever I start talking about that one, I was just distancing myself from him. Yeah, so I did, because I never wanted to be a writer, because I believe that writers were poor. I mean, when I read a book, I look at the the author photo, and I see how haggard they looked with grown beards and everything. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be this guy. I wanted to be a writer. I come from a middle class family where everybody's a businessman, right? So I understood what it meant to have money. So I couldn't see myself otherwise. So I felt that, okay, I would become a doctor because I felt I had fallen from it. And I was very, very, very good at that. I was very, very good. I mean, biology has always been my best subject. So it has been like that for me. And but it was not possible for me to get admitted into medicine in Nigeria. You know how it is in Nigeria. To get admitted in medicine
institution, and many persons.
Yes. Exactly. It's considered elitist. Medicine as a course is considered elitist.
Doctor, just for our viewers, in Nigeria, if you're not a doctor, if you're not a lawyer, if you are not an engineer, then just know that you are useless to the family. That is what is sown in our head. That is what is sown in the things we get to do. And someone like Dike Chukwumerije also pointed it out. The father said, medicine or law. And he's like, okay, I did it for my father. Now I am a poet because that is what I wanted to do. So the challenge of we have more schools, we have fewer schools in Nigeria as opposed to the growing population of youth. And it affects a whole lot of things. And I think it was important we get to chip in that. What did you end up studying? I know what you ended up studying.
Okay, I was
just
not
for our viewers, like.
Okay. I did okay, after the post-uni exams and everything, I went to check my result and I saw myself on the merit list, number 1, food science and technology. I never sat for the exam, but they saw me that due to the high score I got, which qualified me very much for medicine, it would be wrong to not get me admitted into medicine, and in fact, it would be wrong to just single me out of the department and just let me be. So they had to fix me somewhere, which was food science and technology, and they put me number 1 on the list, on the merit list. So I looked at it and I said, okay, fine, make I go to the team now. That was in Amos State University. Yes, so I went there, I did food science, but I told myself that I will study this course so good that I'll have it at the tip of my fingers. Yeah, so even though I came out as a second class lower, but ask anybody from that Department of Food Science and Technology, 2006 sets, 2006 graduating class, ask them, they'll tell you that Ikenna Okeh is the best graduating student.
Wow.
They'll tell you that. Because even up to this moment, we still discuss food science. And I discuss it around, they'll be like, oh, you still remember all of these things? I'll be like, I read now, I read, So that's how it is. And after graduating and my NYSC, I got a job without the influence of anybody. I got a job. I rose through the ranks. very fast, right? I mean, at the age of 25, I was practically heading a branch at the age of 25. And of course, a lot of people envied me for that. A lot of people envied me for that. So, but in the course of time, I realized that I was just not at the right place for me. So I started asking myself. I came to realize that the world understands fair commerce. You need to give the world something that is in you for you to expect something in return, right? So that is how nature behaves. That's what nature recognizes. So I started asking myself, what is that thing that nature has naturally given to me without my having to go acquire it from some sort, as in for training and all of that. So I started thinking back, and I remember, I used to write before.
Wow.
Okay, let me see if I still have it in me. I said, okay, let me see if I still have it in me. I tried my hand at it, and that was the first short story I submitted to the Game Prize short stories surgery, and I accepted immediately. And I'm like, oh, if these people can recognize me like this, that means this is their body, right? So that, yeah, exactly. So that was when within that period, things were getting rough at work and everything, and I'm like, I think this is just a sign that I just have to dump this whole thing and switch over immediately. So I just woke up one morning and I quit, and I faced writing, and I've never looked back ever since.
But I want to believe you quit with proper plans, or you quit hoping that you
No, I woke up one morning and said, this is it.
Wow.
I had no prior plans. I just woke up one morning and I'm like, no, this is
back. You'll never regretted it.
Back. When I made that decision, my father felt that something was wrong. You know, even it was rumored that I possibly might have stolen money from the company. Right? It was rumored amongst my cousins that I must have. So, but within that period, the company came to my dad and were begging my dad to convince me to come back and choose any department I want to work at. So I told my dad that if I have stolen money, they would have called the policemen.
Yeah.
You know, they won't be telling you to beg me, to convince me to come back to work. You understand? So, my father as well was feeling bad. He was like, I used to be proud of you that you got a job. I used to brag about you, and all of a sudden you're putting the job. Is anything wrong? Why are you making it seem as if there's somebody remoting you from the village? You know? So, but I mean, up until he died last year, of course, we'll be buried in a few days' time. He never believed in what I was like. He never saw. It never made sense to him. If you ask him what is Ikenna doing, Ikenna is in Tokyo. Ikenna is in so place. I don't know what he's doing, right? Because I'm the first person in my whole extended family doing this thing. So it doesn't make sense to go to them, and it made me. You suppose you. I mean, come to think of it, I'm the first son of the family, and it's expected that you know how difficult it is for the first one of the family to pursue an artistic, career. It's practically impossible, but I'm the one person who have done it, and I'm the one person who still meets up with his responsibilities. And I feel like people are just looking for something to brag with your friends over. It's not like you care too much about it. So just let me. It's my life. I'm an adult. Let me pursue my pen. So I'm a very quiet person. I'm a very reserved person, but I became rebellious just to pursue writing.
And just to drive home the point here, Ikenna talks about the idea of being the first son in Nigeria. Being the first son in Nigeria is becoming a dad at a very, very young age. Like you first of all start if that's the younger one. First of all, come to think about the fact that you will be ready to go for fights. If your sister gets into a trouble in town, they will come to call you and report to you. And we'll be glad you if you are lazy, if you are the elder brother that cannot fight. Your sister will be so ashamed when you go there and you get beaten, and they will not come to call you next time. You are the one that ordinarily will be looking out for, if you have younger sisters, to be looking out for boys in the village who ordinarily want to start showing that, this girl is becoming ripe with their own sense and stuff like that. And you ordinarily, at the age of 18, 19, you should start providing when you realize that you are now an adult is when they will come to you for Christmas. In Nigeria, during the Christmas period, people get to go out and they go and ask for funds, and nobody really wants to eat. And if that's all you can do without giving them money, you are looked at as a stingy uncle and a stingy auntie. And also as a firstborn, as a first son, worse, it even becomes worse if you are also the first child. You ordinarily would now be called uncle. They will not call you, or they will call you brother. It shows this level of you have a rank kept down there for you. And so for Ikenna telling us that he had to become rebellious to ordinarily do this, calls to mind for someone like me the poem by Theodore Roosevelt. And I know it wasn't given as a poem. When Theodore Roosevelt was talking to the military guys, he wasn't having it in mind as a poem. You know, the Citizens Republic is the complete stuff, but the man in the arena is what has come to be popularly known. You know, the idea of it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or whether the doer of this would have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who errs, who comes short again and again, who knows that there's no effort without error and shortcoming, who actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasm, who in the end, if he succeeds, knows the triumph of high achievement, and if he fails at least while daring greatly, so that his place shall not be with those cold and timid souls who neither know success nor defeat. And we can comfortably say without any iota of flattery here that Mr. Ikenna has started a cause for himself, and we are seeing how he's leading his life and how he has come to fare. You know, the idea of who feeds the starving artist, the idea of does philosophy bake bread? And we are seeing it, it's baking bread. Is it living a fulfilled life? Of course. And that is also what we have heard him talk about down here. But if we are to go back by way of little digression, did you still practice the science? Okay, you say you left completely, because the question I want to ask is the angle in which we are looking at the continent at the moment. We get food aid from outside. We get financial aid from outside. We get seed aids. Like Poland contributed some quantity of rice to be planted some years ago, if not last year or two. And it continues like this. We get to import about 85% of the things we ordinarily get to eat, to add also to the other merchandise we import that we don't even need, from tiles to chairs to in and about this. You find in the work of the American Lebanese poet, that's Gibran, pity the nation whose food is not produced by itself, whose leaders just come in and go out and continues like this. Pity the nation that doesn't plant its own food and does nothing for itself, but depends on others to get to do that. On the aspect of food, we know security in the north and in different places is also contributing to this challenge. But what will you say as a food scientist that can help us get to look at least getting food security and getting a food ban that will see to it that no, the West cannot do what they just want to do with us, and then we die. So in summary, like, what are we not doing right in the food sector that we should do right?
First of all, I'm going to say something. I will say that first of all, Nigeria. Okay, let me put it this way: it is only in Nigeria that you hear that an arid region feeds the rainforest region.
That's the north.
It defies everything that. Yes, it defies everything that was taught to us in geography. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That is because there is an existing political will,
like
to
the
keep
north
things the way
and
they are.
the south, and the guys that made it easy
Yes.
for us to get to conquer the country, as opposed to the other guys who ordinarily didn't believe in monarchy and who were ordinarily a democratic country, democratic people, and now we have to teach them a lesson.
Who are the more populous people? Of course, that comes down to the fact that Nigeria makes you believe that an arid region is more populous than a rainforest region, which still doesn't make any sense.
Kanu got divided.
Right.
A state was extracted out of Kanu, and yet the number of local governments, the number of
Jigawa states. Jigawa State.
Yeah,
That was where
but
I did
still,
my
the number
NYSC.
of local governments in Kano still remain the same.
Yes. Now, the thing is,
Yeah,
before Nigeria was created, when they were two protectorates, right? The Southern Protectorate, of course, has always been more popular than the North. Were they importing any foods?
of
They were
course.
growing them, they were sustaining themselves, and they were even exporting. They were feeding themselves and still exporting cash crop, right? So if you look at it, you find out that everything we're
Sure.
suffering in Nigeria is artificial. So until we fall back to follow things like until we exert that political will to make the system work, that is when we
Yeah,
can see real problems and know how to tackle them. So talking about this food security and all of that,
sure.
the problem is artificial. They should just get their hands off everybody's neck, get their feet
Yeah,
off everybody's throats, and let us live. And then that's where we can start seeing real problems, and then we can start seeking practical
yeah,
solutions
and
to these
it's something
problems.
many persons will not come to understand. I was born in Cross River, and I lived in a whole lot of local governments in Cross River, and I consider myself also cosmopolitan because I've been blessed with the possibility of living in different regions in the country, and also I spent a couple of times in different African countries, and now I find myself in Europe, and I've been also able to like meet and talk to one or two persons, and it doesn't make sense, like you rightly said, that a place like the South ordinarily would be where it is today, save for the machinations of whatsoever. If the idea of the Ajakuta steel industry and how it ended up in Ajakuta is anything to go by, calls to mind what we are doing currently. The places we cite industries, the places we cite things, and how we go about things, and how we dump projects in the wrong places as opposed to where they ordinarily are supposed to be, is also a thing we ordinarily should be asking ourselves. I think like the reality and the fact that Lagos operates the only, so to say, well-functioning port in the country is an irony, and is a disservice not just to the country as a whole, it's a disservice to a whole lot of persons. And we are not looking at that. We are not asking the real question. And it's what you've been pointing out from the very beginning, the idea of we treating symptoms, which is where we started from, the idea of your book, the idea of symptoms just coming out as opposed to real-time issues. Talking about the way narratives have been spinned around, and many persons have to come to understand that when a lie is told over and over again, it begins to take the shape of truth. And when a people don't really look at their story and look at what it is as what it is, they begin to hog these stories as farewell hogs. And you know how tight farewell hogs can be. And when you hold it that long, it lives with you, because when you find yourself in a strange land, you remember the time this person came to the bus stop or to the airport or wherever to give you that hug, and you remember that particular scene, and it's what we've been told, from our idea of we being inferior to the idea that we as a people are almost not fit. And I give you an example. In Kenya, something fell from a hubris fell from space and landed close to a community, but no lives were lost. And then a group of personnel who were said to come from the Kenyan Space Agency came to inspect the situation, and it was reported in the media. But what do you get to hear from the people as to the possibility of the existence of a Kenyan Space Agency is a thing that leaves you sick, leaves you confused, leaves you angry with yourself, sometimes to even be associated with the people such as such as such as the youth of our time. Because what is there to say that the Kenyan government or the Kenyan people ordinarily cannot have a space agency, be it as minute as whatsoever, howsoever we get to look at that, to the extent whereby if you drive it back home, at the point the North had to put blockades for goods not to leave the North down to the South. And that story has continued to be sold, probably because we've told ourselves, we have to go out. We have to leave the East. We have to leave the West down to the West. We have to leave the South, rather, down to the West and down to the North to ordinarily get greener pastures. And it is tied down to stories the youths ordinarily sometimes, and even adults don't even get to come to tell themselves the stories we've told ourselves over and over again, as opposed to looking at the fundamental issues. And the issues down here are tied to policies. Because Dike, if we're to even look at Dike Chukwumerije's work, he makes us come to understand that in his work, Fix the Politics, he maintains that a broken road does not understand Igbo. It will not maim the Fulani or let the rest of us go. The accident will cost will take our lives. For when a vehicle somersaults, it breaks all bones. Whether you speak Nupe, you speak whatsoever, it will not do anything. And not even ourselves now. All of us are in this together, and we must come together to really look at our situation. Which drives me to my next question. The idea of you being a writer who writes about different things. You've written books for children, you've written books for adults, you've written poetry, the barber shop stands there as its own collection and a masterpiece on its own level. If we're to start from the idea of children's book, the title Saving Mungo Park, where did it come from? I know you partnered with Onyeka, but why Saving Mungo Park?
Okay.
Onyeka
came up with the title.
And
I give him credit for that. He came up with the title.
I like it. And I like the book also.
Title,
I like the way he also gets to capture stuff, they are no white people. And it's
yes. Yes. It's like his signature, his titles gets to capture attention. So he came up with the title and the rough idea for the story because one of his ancestors from his mother's side of where was a very famous warlord who existed at the same time that Mungo Park came to the Niger, around that Oguta area. So, and he was very active not only in Oguta but as well in Bonne. So, and he led an expedition to drive away Mungo Park's people when he came to the Niger. So, Onyeka had this concept that, okay, what if we do a story that attempts to tell a little bit as to how an African drove away Mungo Park and how Mungo Park was almost lost and was saved by a woman. So he came up with the idea and then we worked on it. We did a lot of back and forth. We had an Indian do the illustration. Yes, so it's because he is often of the opinion that history is shaped by people who tell the stories, like by people who tell it. And oftentimes, because we have let our own story, the stories that pertains to us, they've always written it in their favor with such audacity that when you come to Africa, you see evidence on ground that contradicts everything that they tell you.
Sure.
You understand? So he has always been of the opinion, and he is like, okay, we just have to start. We have to start working on ourselves. We have to start leaving traces for people who come after to see these things and be like, okay, because if after 200 years, for instance, or 300 years, somebody comes along and he has seen everything that has written 200 years prior to that time about us, and there has been no rebuttal, like no counter arguments. So be like, if these people have been okay with this, that means this is actually the truth. But if in the course of going through, you see, okay, these people said this thing about themselves, other people have said something about these people, and these people have said something different about themselves. Let's take. I mean, we have to investigate it closer. And if they can look at archaeological evidence, they'll see that no. Thank God for people like Achebe who wrote Just Fall Apart to prove to them that no, we have a culture, we are a people who have been in the system. We had our own civilizations. So you cannot justify the genocide that was legalized by the Portuguese to happen
in Congo.
By the Belgium, to happen in Congo.
Yeah.
Not just Belgium, but the whole of Europe.
Spend time there and different stuff like that.
Yes, exactly. So for them to have permitted for them to have permitted this whole thing, and they tried for them to have legalized it, because even back in the day they looked at it that if you can, I mean, what the thing that happened in Benin, destroyed the Benin walls and and everything, it was legalized. Conquest, it was legalized, and that is why no matter what the British does in any of their present colonies, the French will not interfere. Nobody, because they respect their legal framework of that time that says that you can go and conquer people and do whatever it is. It is legal. We will respect your rights to do that in Africa. So for the fact they legalized it, and their writers try to justify it, if we let it slide, it will stick. Right. So we still have to leave evidence along the way for those who have to come after, that this is how we reacted to this thing. We did not exactly accept it. So whenever they tell you that your ancestors are inferior humans, are subhumans, because they also endorsed the treatments meted out to them, you, being the descendant, can argue it that no, there are evidence of ground to show that we did not accept this. You did what you did against our will.
And
against our consent.
It's a very, very important thing that even the youths are not really looking at. And even old people self don't even come to really know. If I'm to go back to a thing like a person like Homer in the Odysseus down there, when Odysseus found himself with I think that's Prometheus, the Cyclops, the one-eyed Cyclops, when they found themselves in his cave and all that, and Odysseus was asked, "What is your name?" He said, "Nomad," which means nobody. And then when they finally, after the attack, the Cyclops laid at them, and they finally got rid of his eye, and he was shouting, "No man is killing me. No man is killing me," which literally translates to mean nobody is killing me. So if neighbors were around and the Cyclops is shouting, "Nobody is killing me," nobody is coming to save you, because probably maybe he's having a nightmare and nobody is killing him. And I think we as young people also find ourselves within a space whereby we almost don't really know who we are. To a large extent, we see ourselves in this particular situation. We look everywhere. There are problems, there are challenges, there are difficulties, but we cannot point out exactly where the problem is coming from. We cannot point out exactly where the events are coming from. A Tunisian economist made me understand the fact that the plan currently where we are at the moment are policies and plans and contracts and deals that have been signed more than 70 years ago. So they have planted the trees of ordinarily what we are experiencing now about 60, 70, 80, 90 years ago, as opposed to we thinking there are symptoms currently in our government. And it is not to excuse the inadequacies of our leaders. It is rather to buttress the point that these people put in the work. These people pay their scientists. These people pay their researchers. These people send their diplomats to go on diplomatic missions, and they sit down, they study things. A little look at WikiLeaks would get to show you the entries done by diplomatic personnel in these countries and how they get to go about the documenting of a people's life and a people's culture. Meanwhile, we just think it isn't about sitting down, drinking, as opposed to looking at our problems squarely and looking at our problems deeply also, because it matters. It matters that in the 21st century, we don't even know almost where we are heading. And it's tied to stories. It's tied to the narratives we get to tell ourselves and all that. And so you think it's important to write for children. right?
Yes, my own reason for venturing into children writing is because we realize that Nigerians are not good readers. We don't have a habit of reading. And I'm one person who doesn't like complaining. And that is why sometimes I get fed up with, literary festivals, because everybody comes there and whine and complain, and then they go back to doing
Nobody
exactly what
shows
they're
in the
doing.
work.
Yes, nobody. I mean, Nigerian writers are like that. African writers generally are like that. They complain, they speak the grammar, and they go back to doing exactly what they are doing that led to that situation. So I decided that, okay, let me see how this works out. Let me see if I can try to, because I believe
Yeah.
that we have to catch them young. We have to, build that curiosity in them, let them begin to, and most especially, I realized that because when I wanted to buy, because usually I buy books every month for my my nephews, my younger nephews, So, and I realized that because I always look out for African content or Afrocentric content, and I usually find out that we don't have much people writing as a writing for African children, because these children will be reading books that they can't see people who look like them. So that was why I ventured into that in the first place. And it was a success because, I mean, it was mostly during the lockdown, and I was getting people to buy copies for children, which I was giving to them for free. That was the model I used. And people loved it. I would walk on the streets and children would lay me and would ask me, when is the next book coming out? When is the next book coming out? To keep telling me how they love the book and all that. And there was a time that a crowd of children came to my gate and were knocking that they want to see that brother that is dashing children's book. Because I was in Nigeria then. That was when I was deported from Cyprus. Yeah. So it was a project I did to keep myself grounded. I needed to keep my head clear. So I graduated into children's book, and I did that. I got people to buy for children, and I was giving to them during the lockdown so as to keep them busy during my estates. So that is how I got into children's book. And I encourage as many writers as there are to please write for once, like write for children for one, because we need more children's books. We need more.
If you look at the Commonwealth speech Chimamanda gave, I think in 2012, she recounted the story of her experience with books, reading books that, she talked about the impossibility of it at the time of she thinking that girls with ponytails can ordinarily make it to the literary world, books that you will not find things like Mungo, Udala. You will not find things like Uba. And even in the poems, we also get to write that are even situated within our context. It's just left with just a little level of curiosity. You will start seeing people talking about ice creams as opposed to the daily realities of things we ordinarily can find ourselves. And when you look at the fact that though she comes from this well-to-do family, she ordinarily struggled with the idea of coming to conceptualize. And when she ordinarily had a taste of it for the first time, it changed how she ordinarily felt about it. She had looked at this particular snag as something that if you don't get to take or if you don't get to eat, probably your life is not complete. And she said when she had the chance to visit the US with the family for the first time, she told her mom as a matter of urgency, she has to taste, or the mother has to get her a bagel, because that's how she used to call it from how she read it, as opposed to bagel. And when she tasted it, it was just a dense donut, and she had to take that away from her consciousness. But in this particular story, you find the idea that something as important as this, the fact that the consciousness of children are built from the things they get to listen to and the things they get to do and the way they get to live life, has been taken away from them. Because we say people don't read, children don't read, but there are children who want to read. There are children who would read if they are given books to read. What are children supposed to do? Are they adults? Should they start looking for jobs at the age of 10, 11, as opposed to what should ordinarily get to capture their attention?
They should engage their mind.
Yeah, then you
That's
find
the age of
parents telling
curiosity.
you children don't read. let's leave the adults. Let's face the children at the moment. Catching them young means getting to put things in the right place. And back to us also. We find this in Chinua Achebe. Here, the black man can write something. Achebe didn't just write, because many persons want to bring up the idea that Things Fall Apart is not a great book. Each time you pick Things Fall Apart to read, there's something new you take away from. If you're not taking away from the proverb, you're not taking away from the anecdote, you're taking away something new. I've read Things Fall Apart more than 10 times in the course of my short existence. There's no time I have picked the book to read that I've not gotten something new. Talk more of the masterpiece I consider, Arrow of God. For me, Arrow of God is the real deal down there. Look, he didn't just write, he wrote beautifully well. As opposed to the idea that a black man is good for nothing. And you see also adults and even people in the literary world looking at the palm wine Drinkard and the different things that Amos wrote as something that is not important. And when you see such comments, I can only but laugh. Because if you look at the depth and the short time Amos took to write the palm wine Drinkard, he said he just wrote it within, I think, a span of 2 weeks or something like that. All I have known in my life is the idea that I drink palm wine. My father had to go get a tapper for me, and the way he brushes through the English, and and it's just so beautifully done, as opposed to we just looking at things the way we look at things. We need children's book more, you said. What about the youth? The damage has been done. Many youths grew up without reading. I had the chance of really reading well, and I come from a middle-class family too. But then one of my uncle made it a duty to ask me what I wanted every year and how to go about things. And for one, I think I stopped the idea of Christmas clothes and Christmas shoes when I was about 12, 13. And my mom will always say, you complain every time about the fact that we eat meat every day in the house. And there's a particular delicacy known to the South, that is afang. In my family growing up, it was like a tradition that we cook afang every market day. And the market day in Cross River was 5 days. Every 5 days becomes the next market day, as opposed to Ori, this thing that is done down there in our own cosmology as Igbos. So, this my uncle would see me draft out list for him and the names of books and the people I want to read and the people I'm looking out for. And what he kept on asking me is, what time do you have to really go through these books? Do you really read them or what? I'm like, of course, I read the works. And he's like, why am I reading these books? And he definitely he knows the importance of reading. But what I'm saying is, I don't think it comes to every young person the beauty that comes from writing, the beauty that comes from this, because probably they have been sold a different reality. The British songwriter and musician Passenger, the crooner of Only Know Your Lover When You Let Her Go, said in one of his songs, you can only buy what you are sold. That idea of buying what you are sold, because take for instance the example of you shipping your books from the Mexican region down to the Turkish world and geographical position. You saw the difficulty in getting to do a mail, and it had to go through the US, I think, if I can remember the post you did. I think it went.
Yeah, he went through the US, went through Germany, Sweden, and then
this way.
Turkey.
How do we salvage this particular situation? How do we make this particular thing important to Nigerians? Because not just Nigerians, Africans, and by extension, global citizens. Because when we talk about reading and we talk about the difficulty, sometimes it looks as if it's just Nigerians alone. No, I think it's a global problem where people also are becoming more and more focused on getting money, making money, as opposed to things that get to outlive them and go into the future. How do we capture the youth and tell them that reading is possible?
I think I have a suggestion, which of course is not absolute. The writers, let me talk about Africans, because I mean let's talk about Nigeria, because that's where I come from. I'm still very much Nigerian. That aspect of me has not been eroded it has not been affected by any contact with other cultures in any way whatsoever. You know, I mean, I still
Of
eat
course,
I
of
still eat
course.
Nigerian food, even rice in Mexico. Okay. So now my suggestion is this. I have come to observe that the lack of reading, whereas concerns
Yeah.
like the lack of interest in reading amongst Nigerian youths, it's 80%. Okay,
Yeah.
some to a great extent is the fault of Nigerian writers. We have not come to take
Okay.
into cognizance the behavioral habits of Nigerians because we are still keyed into writing for the West and organizations that are Eurocentric.
Funding our prizes and all
You
that, and our
understand?
scholarship.
Yes, because because yes, because I mean, let me give you an even I in as much as I blame the writers, I still blame institutions in the few
Okay.
institutions in Nigeria that push writing. Let me sorry to say it. I was discussing with a friend who is also a
Okay.
Nigerian writer a few days back, and he was asking to know which of the books I will be entering for
Okay.
the coming LNG prize. And I told him I told him I will enter Yahoo Yahoo. And he's like, this one of my seats that you're tarnishing
But is
Nigeria's
that is
image.
that a lie? Is it not a societal reality that at the moment we are battling a problem with crime and email scam?
Exactly. So he was suggesting, he brought up whatever happens in Antalya. I told him that whatever happens in Antalya would appeal to them because of the writing style, because these days we
Yeah.
value style over content. Right? That whatever happens in Antalya will definitely appeal to them, no doubt. However, it is just the book is Afrocentric in as okay, it's Afrocentric as far as
Yeah.
having a main character who is Nigerian and who encounters Turkey, who encounters Antalya and is seeing Antalya from the viewpoint of a Nigerian
Yeah.
encountering such a culture for the first time, or the diversity for the first time, and the experiences he's having and all of that. That I would enter Yahoo Yahoo. Now, this goes back to look at the aspirations of Nigerian writers. Nigerian writers do not aspire to win wide leadership in Nigeria. They aspire to be recognized by the West.
Yeah.
Right? So that is why they write the way they. There are certain books, there are certain Nigerian books that I pick up. So Nigerian write a novel that I pick up, and I open it and I read and I keep asking that, how does an average
There are a
Nigerian
lot of books that come to
relate
my
to this
head
whole
now, but
thing?
let's just save the names.
Exactly. A lot of them. So everybody writes literary fiction. I, for instance, I write genre fiction. I write crime fiction a lot. I just did romance with whatever happens in Antalya.
Yeah.
I prefer writing crime fiction. Yeah. Now, and most of the time when I enter for prizes for, in Nigeria or Africa and other, they don't pay attention to my work because this is not literary fiction. Everybody wants to mirror your works to follow after the line of Chinua Achebe, Chimamanda Adichie, Chigozie Obioma, and then the whole product that churned out of MFA programs in the West, right? So that is what everybody is leaning towards. Nobody actually panders to Nigerian leadership. In as much as they still write in Nigeria, they don't pander to Nigerian leadership. Now, Nigerians read, but something that they can identify with. Look at Only Bomb Matters. Shout out to the writer. Yeah, shout out to her. I like what she did. Right. Anybody can frown at the title as much as they want, but she understood Nigerians and she had Nigerians in mind, and she showed that yes, like she made people like us understand that okay, our hypothesis actually works.
Same thing also with
right now.
Same thing
with
also
Yahoo Yahoo coming out.
Same thing also with her first book.
Okay.
Not nearly all the men in Lagos are mad.
Yes. Nearly all the men in Lagos are mad.
Look at the very beginning. Look at the very beginning of how it came in. The idea of a Lagos-based family having problem. The whole idea of almost wanting to chop off the dick out of the man if the chance was given. The wife in that particular, the first story, made that allegation, and you saw how the auntie was all like, why will you say such a thing? But these are the things that we do. these are the things we get to see in our day-to-day living and our day-to-day life. The idea that somebody can say,
Yes.
waka. Somebody can say, you dey craze. That anger in the Nigerian, that anger in the, I don't want to call it anger, the idea of that restive spirit within us that want to, we know they carry last. And I think that's what you are trying to drive at.
Yes, we need to, I mean, we have records to look back at. Okay, like for instance, before I get to that, with my current book coming out, Yahoo Yahoo, right? I've had a lot of people writing to me say, "Oh boy, you want spoil our formats." I say, "Don't worry, when the book come out, read them and make it everything I put." I like Yahoo boys are writing. Some of them will reach out or they will tell people who know me that your brother, I feel like say he wants spoil work for us, so that's your guy. I feel like say he wants spoil work for us. I'm like, come down, make work come out, man. You understand? Make it be side Nigeria now on a pay TSS, make them carry me, or pay HSS, make them carry me. There you go. You understand? But the thing is, what I'm trying to say is it has captured the attention. I mean, this is the first time that, I mean, to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time that a book concerns people who have already been written off as having no business with readership. Yes, because now they want to know what is in it.
Sure.
What is this boy saying? Who is this person? Right? Now we have something to look back at to say, okay, it is possible that we can actually have a sustainable, publishing environment. We can make economics out of this whole written thing. Before the Civil War, there was Onitsha market literature. Yeah, we had people who, like the man who wrote Veronica, My Daughter, who had the character Bombadili, right? It was, I mean, people were actually making money from book sales, like book sales alone, not even literary prizes. And the man who wrote that book, possibly he was never heard about in the West, but his book sold, and many of them, their books sold. Okay, that still takes us back to if we can refer it to what happens in cinema in Nigeria, right? There is a reason Asaba has a thriving industry, a thriving film industry.
Base.
Yes, it even has a sustainable industry that is very much different from what we have now with cinemas and all filmmakers running into debt and all of that. Because everything that is happening now with this whole cinema thing and all that, they just hype and floss. You just hype, right? These guys understood they understood their market. They understood that this is a kind of movie that people relate to. Hey, husband and wife, people in the village, just a widow being maltreated and all of this. Now they would use minimal budgets to make a film within a space of 1 month or 2 or 3 months. They're done with it. They print CDs, they go to the market, they hawk it, and they make a lot of money. Right? At some point, with the advent of YouTube, with the popularity rather of YouTube in Nigeria, they switched over to YouTube, and they were making their money from YouTube. Right? It has nothing to do with what we're seeing now, where everybody is mentioning billions and billions in box office that is not real.
According to Nigeria, they go say
and everything.
Off mic.
Yes. So because the thing is, when it comes to matter of popular culture, right? Nigerians do not like people to say the truth. Nigerians do not like people who are honest about certain things, right? And if we are to make it in the arts, whether writing, whether music or anything, we have to be real. There is a reason. There was a reason Yahoo made a lot of waves. Because it talks about real issues in Nigeria.
It was also used in the book I mentioned earlier, this Paradise for Maggots, that captured the life and times of Nuhu Ribadu, because it set a pace. And I had also planned to as if you're also into film and you're also into the musical world. You talked about the interplay of songs and stuff like that. How well are we going to see songs in this upcoming work? Are we going to see playlists down there?
The book is divided into chapters, and each chapter starts with a lyric, right? A line from the lyrics of a particular song that resonates with the chapter, and all of these songs are based on Yahoo songs. You understand? From Kelly Handsome,
Maga.
from Bella Shmuda,
Maga, don't play.
nice, Olu maintain, right? So because I wanted to prove something that for people who might feel that I'm venturing into waters that should be left unbothered,
It's been there.
they should understand that these things have been talked about in music from way back, and everybody has no problem with that. Yes. So why should anybody have a problem with it, with literature, as a coming to depict something that is a real life situation? And I mean, I would not be the first person to do it because Adobe Trisha Nwelue, she wrote, I Do Not Come to You by Chance, which is about an internet fraudster, right? Yeah. And before this book came out, I reached out to her. I told her that you're the godmother of this genre, so I have to recognize you. Yeah, because I'm somebody who believes in respecting people who come before you. I do that a lot. So that is it. So
but
that's my answer to the whole thing.
It's because of the power and the enduring strength of books and how it can go, and how people ordinarily are so afraid of the fact that, when it gets written, it gets, like, Pilate said, when the whole idea of Jesus trial, say, what I have written, and stuff like that. And you also see that grace in the writings of Dele Farotimi, and himself. He has even come out to say, what I do, I am not writing for you. I am not writing for people living. I'm writing for posterity. And when they come, what would they say of us? What would they say happened here? So that they would not think all of us were all mad when the whole idea of the Nigerian enterprise was going on, and events like that. And in looking at this, I look at someone like the lawyer, the South African lawyer, Ntembeka Taitobi, and his involvement in the legal process in South Africa. And I bring up South Africa for a whole lot of reasons. Chidinma, when came to Mexico and did what she did, and before that happened, she was in South Africa, and she met all the requirements from the research I made and from everything that happened. And till now, I still can't really identify, was it your voice or the voice of Prof that was calling out, Chidinma, Chidinma? What? Yeah,
that was Onyeka. I was the one taking the shot. Okay, I was taking a shot at one of our friends as well. Onyeka was even shouting.
Your voice can kind of look similar. It was something. I was like, is this Onyeka's voice or was this Ikenna's voice? I'm like, and the caption it took when your uncle comes to the pageantry, and Nigerian, that idea of, and it was done with so much passion, Chidinma, Chidinma.
Yes. Considering the backlash and everything that came from our support of not just our support of her, but our stand against what we perceived to be mob rule, right? Yeah, I mean, I lost an uncle to xenophobia in South Africa. Boniface Iwoha, he was stabbed to death in one of their xenophobic attacks in 2018. It's on the internet. If you type Boniface Iwoha, you see it on the internet, because we took it up we took it up at the federal level in Nigeria. It was discussed at the federal House of Reps, and that was the end of it.
Nigerian story.
Nothing came of it. Nothing came. We were able to push it up to that extent, but that was it, because we wanted the government to intervene and everything. So they discussed it at the floor of the Federal House of Representatives, and that was the end of it. The wife and the kids he had in South Africa, nobody has any of their contacts. So, but that is it. So the thing is, I understand the passion we had for the whole thing, because we understood the whole mob rule and how South Africans went on social media to tag me, to calling for my head everywhere and everything, and casting aspersions that I was traveling with a South African passport and all of that. And I've never been to South Africa. I've never applied for a South African visa. I have every intention of visiting sometime, because I love South Africa no matter what. South Africa is I mean, we're African, and I'm very much Afrocentric, right? And I understand their struggles. I understand their struggles as because I understand what it means to live in in a, or rather to be an African in a multiracial society. Understand what goes on.
Where you can ordinarily say everybody is African, at least on the face level, because you still find that difficulty, and I think it's also what Mandela also faced when he came. If you watch Invictus, you'll get to see when Morgan Freeman was to, let's not call him that way, let's say Madiba, when Madiba was to take office the very first day he came, the whole group of white employees down there had already finished packing their stuff, and Mandela said, this is your country. If you love your country and you really want to work and stay here, and it can be very, very difficult. It can be very, very difficult to be them. But if we are to start from the very beginning of this, let's take it up from a place like, she met all the requirements. I have gone through the requirements down there and what on that. She's a South African citizen. Am I right? Because she was born down there, and not just even being born down there, she has all her proper documentation, and she's living completely. She led her life down there completely, and it raises the question as to the idea of globalization and cosmopolitanism. A thing I believe strongly in. It was cosmopolitanism that made Dike said to Awo, let us not drop our differences. Let us understand our differences, as opposed to what Awolowo was saying. Let us put aside our differences. It was from the idea that Dike from the East, who sometime in the North, did his political career in the West, was able to see this broad spectrum as to how life ordinarily can be led and how life ordinarily should be led. What drew your attention to the story? How did you come about the story? Were you already in touch with the events down there, or was it from Ubuntu FM, or how did it come about?
Okay, for some reason, a lot of things that happens in South Africa gets to me because I'm one of the co-founders of Ubuntu FM, which is virtually based in South Africa. Myself, Peter from the Netherlands, and we have some South Africans as well on the team. So a lot of things that happen that goes on in South Africa, somehow it trickles down to me in person. I get to know about it. So, and I was asked to direct the Prevalent International Literature Festival for last year, and we gave South Africa that so we made them country focus, and we have a number of South African writers that we sent out invitations to, which they confirmed, and we're making preparations to get them over to.
But if I should ask, okay. But if I should ask, why was South Africa made a space to be in the country to be in focus for this year? Is this something the international fair had looked into, that will be taking countries in focus, or it was just something probably peculiar with the South African people?
The idea is we wanted one country to be a country in focus for each year. So we gave South Africa the honor of being the country in focus
for
our meeting edition.
The existential crisis or the event going on in that country, was it tied to like solving a particular problem or exposing a particular reality to the larger?
It was not tied. It was not tied to anything. It was just randomly picked. We had no reason for that, so to say.
The randomness of picking. I'm thinking about the reason why the organization came up with the idea of picking countries every year to be in focus. Yeah.
Okay. No. It's to platform their writers. Just to platform their writers. Yeah. So because the idea of the festival is to be a meeting point for industry players in in Hispanic countries and African countries. Just bring them together. We just want to, because the Hispanic countries do not know much about Africa in terms of literature and the arts. They don't know much. So we just want to be that meeting point. We want to serve as that meeting point for them. So that is why for each country, for each each edition will pick one particular country. We'll bring in more of the writers, right? Where we make, we kind of bring them into direct contact with industry players, literary agents, publishers, illustrators, writers from Hispanic countries, Peru, Mexico, Argentina, all these places around. So we chose South Africa, and we were already making plans for having them here. Then within that same period, we saw what was happening with Chidem. It was shocking. Then we sat down and we reasoned that, okay, why should we use our money to platform our brothers in South Africa? And we are saying nothing. Meanwhile, they are against Chidem, who can trace our roots to Nigeria as well. Nigerians can't be bringing her here, can't be bringing South Africans here. Why same South Africans are ganging up against somebody with Nigerian roots?
It's also something. It's also something.
And it's South African as well. No, that's why why I say who can trace her roots to Nigeria as well.
Can trace her roots down there, and yet you almost like it's very pathetic, And I talked about GM Code Z and the idea that he is Australian, but also is identified with the South Africans.
We looked at this whole thing and we decided that we need to make a statement. The idea behind withdrawing the country of focus tag of South Africa, it had nothing to do with rancor. We just wanted to make the statements that the South African writers didn't want to make, and South African creative, because they all kept quiet, all the creatives and they've always been silent in the face of xenophobia. So we wanted to make them understand that the world is watching. The people who make decisions are watching. Fellow creatives are watching. So what best way to make the statement, if not to withdraw all the invitation we put to South Africa?
In the wake of such decision, in the wake of that particular stuff, there were a whole lot of stuff that went down, that they had to call down, they had to talk about the radio, they had to, it has to be closed down, and there were a lot of, as it is known to be the case, X drama in the whole thing. Were you guys firm enough to hold that through, or was there a period of reconsideration, at least for the benefit of?
No. We didn't hear it, but I mean, creatives are mad people. At least you should know that. Yes, there's always that corresponding level of insanity that comes with genius, right? So, and many of us are creatives, and we're like, whatever.
The war for,
So we made that decision. We made that decision, and that was it. And we got all the rest. Even the radio stations were reaching out for interviews, and everybody, and we're like, no. We don't have to explain ourselves. We don't have to explain ourselves because we didn't get any funding from you people, neither from your government, neither from your embassy, neither from anybody. It's our own money, so why shouldn't we decide on do all you guys an explanation? That is one aspect of looking at it. At the same time, we understood that, okay, it has made them pay attention to this same thing that they always swept over the carpet every year. Because it has become a thing that every now and then there's always a bout of xenophobic attacks, because everybody overlooks them, nobody makes a statement, nobody says anything, right? So, and we saw how they reacted, how they went on social media, they were casting aspersions, they were saying a whole lot of nonsense. They even went as far as the bold wars in Nigeria, in South Africa and Nigeria, where South Africans will order for boat rights in Nigeria and keep the boat driver stranded. I mean, what level of irresponsibility is that? They did all of, and Nigerians, of course, Nigerians retaliated, and they understood that we had the power of numbers.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, we had the power of numbers, and we made them regret the move, right? So the thing is, it doesn't help anybody if South Africans, and by South Africans I mean Africa, the indigenous South Africans. It doesn't make any sense if the indigenous South Africans having any war, so to say, with other Africans, because they are like overlooking their own problems and going to destroy whatever
Nigerian.
friendship they have with other Africans or with Nigerians and all that. So, and you come to understand that most of these South Africans, they are traumatized. They are not taught their history. They don't
That
understand
is
the
what I
role
was going to
Nigeria
talk about.
played in making sure that this, yes, in making sure that
Even
they
Mandela
secure their
even leaving
independence,
South Africa to
right?
come to
They,
Nigeria and stay there for some time before he left back to the country.
yes, a lot of South Africans were on scholarship
Yeah.
in Jos, in other parts of Nigeria as well. Many South Africans were given Nigerian passports to be able
Yeah.
to travel to Europe and press their course. And for that,
Suffered.
the Nigerian
Sure,
government for
sure.
that suffered some sanctions, right? Yes. Now, there are still many, even when it comes to businesses, there are more South
That
African businesses in Nigeria remitting a lot of money to South
from
Africa than
ShopRite to
Nigeria in South
MTN
Africa.
to
So, yes, economically, South Africa is dependent on Nigeria more than Nigeria is dependent on them. The fact is that when you ask the South Africans, will say, our people are doing drugs, our people are doing drugs, our people are doing drugs. Now, if you look at, I'm a crime writer, I make it my business to
yeah,
understand what goes behind the
definitely.
scenes in most of all of these things. And I can tell you that no Nigeria imports drugs into South Africa. We have Nigerians selling drugs, yes, but it is mostly South African diplomats who move drugs from
Yeah.
Thailand, from Asia, and everywhere into South Africa. And the South African police is very much keen on it. You will see it play out in the
Yeah.
Jobet scene in Dogs of Mexico, which is a movie that is coming out, and which
Okay.
I wrote. Yes. So and
Of course.
you know how enterprising our people are. Our people, when they are enterprising when it comes to meeting demands. So they came to South Africa. They understood that
For
these people
then,
have a taste for drugs. Yeah, they have a taste for drugs. And why not supply the demand? The demand is there. The police is there to cooperate with you. You have their own locals bringing in the product in. And these people who bring the product in do not want to give to their people, because their people, when you give to them, they get high on the product and they don't remit money.
yeah,
You understand? And now, it is not only Nigerians dealing in drugs. They have Tanzania cartels dealing on this thing. They have Mozambicans dealing on
yeah,
these things, right? But there's always this thing about Nigerians that they tend to outshine anybody or any place wherever they go, especially fellow Africans. They tend to outshine fellow Africans. I know a number of times I've walked on the street and people say, you're Nigerian. I say, how do you know?
that
They say, you walk as though you want
I
the place.
I have arrived. I am here. I am not scared of you. That level of confidence we get to exude when we get to go about doing our business.
So there is this thing about us. It's evident. It's clear. And these people cannot, our brothers in South Africa, they tend not to be able to stand it, because it makes them feel as if, it makes them look
Yeah,
at themselves, it makes them introspect. And possibly they don't like to, it's
yeah.
apparent
But
that they don't
to
like to
go by way
introspect.
of history a bit, I think also it's about we like owning our story and owning the things we get to do. I'm so much invested in the narrative and the stories and the events that happened in different African countries as a young man for many reasons, because people my age ordinarily get to look at themselves and say, Africa is this, without ordinarily understanding the main events that ordinarily have led to where we are at the moment. When South Africans get to say, Nigerians are taking their jobs, they are taking their women, they are taking their this, they are taking their that, I think it's born more from the fact that they don't know anything or they don't even understand reasons that were given for the land grabbing that took place in South Africa and how things ordinarily went down there, and how at the moment they're almost left landless because they have been struggling to understand their land situation for a very long time. One of the most popular lawyers down there, Timbeka, wrote "The Land Is Ours," and he also wrote "Land Matters," and how the government of the ANC also failed in terms of reconciling land problem. And it might look deontological, or I might sound deontological down here, but I think there's no question as to who owns the land. How did Mugabe win the case against the land grabbers in his country, old Rhodesia and current day Zimbabwe? It was for the fact that show us receipts of where you bought the land. land is being passed to somebody either by way of inheritance, by way of ownership from gift and all that. Show us evidence to show that this land was actually bought or given to you as gifts. And the answer is they couldn't
No, they
provide,
couldn't.
and we
They
won the
couldn't
case in
provide.
the international courts. But in the case of South Africa, I think the Land Use Act of 1913 in their country made it impossible to backdate when events happen, and such many persons couldn't get their lands and all that. Could it be the case that if they really come to get their hands around a thing like possessing their land, because to me, and you also who spend time in the farming sector and food sector, come to understand the importance of a thing like land in terms of production and also access to the sea in terms of how life and how commerce ordinarily is driven. If the South African government come to get their hands around land, do you think this idea of xenophobia will get to reduce, or you think it's just a thing that has become too long a thing to be done? Bearing in mind also, you had talked about the fact that people are not ordinarily this way. They just get to walk around seeing how they get to survive.
Okay, I'll be honest that I'm not informed enough to make a decision on this. To have an opinion on this. Yeah, I'm not that informed. Yeah, so but there's one thing that has made it clear, in the course of this whole thing with the Miss Universe beauty pageantry, and that is the fact that a lot of South Africans are miseducated. It's glaring that they don't know, they don't even recognize their problems. They don't even know where the problem starts, because if you start telling them, they will be defended that same problem. See if it is something that is inherent to their very existence. So they wouldn't want to defend it, right? So they don't understand their problems because they're not educated about how the world works. They'll tell you that if you feel you're good enough, why not go back to your country? Why not go back to your country? But there are a lot of South Africans in the UK.
Yeah.
There are a lot of South Africans elsewhere. There are a lot of South African companies in Nigeria. Why is nobody telling them to go back to South Africa? They tend to feel as if you should be ashamed for having a good travel history. You're all over the place. You're here. Shameless person. Why not go back to your country? This will not. So it's one thing I've come to understand. I don't know what will reduce this whole xenophobia. I don't know the infrastructure that could be put in place. But one thing is glaring, that they are vastly miseducated, and you see a lot of those miseducated and uneducated ones are the most vocal on social media.
And it is the case also, when you look at the second coming of WBH, it talked about the best and brightest, who lack utter conviction, and the worst among us full of passionate intensity. I think it has a thing to do with what we also say in a part of the world, that the loudest, the empty drum makes the loudest noise. And we just hope that events down there ordinarily get to be settled. And it leaves me asking the question: if someone like Chidinma, who is a citizen, and what that means is that she's a citizen. I don't see any other way of getting to look at that there, that she's a citizen, and what that means is she ordinarily was supposed to be given all the rights she was given. She ordinarily is to be accorded. But be that as it may, we saw how she did and we saw how she fared. Was the organization also involved in seeing to it that she went back to Nigeria? She found her way back to Nigeria and got involved in the pageantry down there. Okay. It was just like a support that came because the organization ordinarily had ties and intentions with South Africans.
I guess the whole thing would have just faced the way if the organization had not stepped in. With the Puebla International Literature Festival coming in, right? It made the South Africans sit up, and it was all over the news in South Africa. It was all over the news in Nigeria, especially in South Africa. So, and then the organizers of the Miss Nigeria pageantry took interest.
Charles Awuzie, who is also in South Africa, picked interest, and that's the business. The founder of James Bock AI or stuff like that.
Okay, I don't think I know him personally, but the Nwelue Oke, the Bruce family, they got involved, and we got in touch with Guy Bruce, who's the one conducting the whole thing and all of that. But we had no influence whatsoever. I don't think, to the best of my knowledge now, we don't have. But the fact that we did what we did drew attention to the whole situation, and that was why everybody got to notice. Otherwise, half is been swept under the carpet and all of that. So, and you know, this brings us to the issue that, I mean, in my opinion, that okay, because it made me look into the case of the whole thing. They said that she had a fake identity. How does that work? And is there a stipulated number of deaths that should be that they should record in a year in South Africa? Okay, who is that person that she deprived of something that they say is stolen identity? Who is that person? Why hasn't the person stepped forward? The whole thing is just it was just in one room. And why should politicians? I mean, they had a minister in South Africa winning the whole thing.
I was so angry at the
Minister of Culture.
And
the Minister of Culture winning the whole thing.
The whole idea of a Nigerian shouldn't be here. I think Gaten, right? Well, like it doesn't make sense that a Minister of Culture would really come out to say that, and I think his name is even Mackenzie.
No, because I just didn't want to remember his name because it pissed me off really that it was so irresponsible for a Minister of Culture
the name
to be winning the whole thing.
Has no ties with the content. And Gaten Mackenzie. And
yes, it's the whole thing. You see, that's the whole thing that has to do with cultural crisis, the crisis of identity. Remember, I told you that South Africans are traumatized. I recognize that yes, they are traumatized. They are traumatized and miseducated. They are divorced from having access to the means of production. Because how can you have a country that you don't have access to the means of production? You don't control the economy. You don't even your minds. You don't own it. You don't own your minds. There are certain areas that you as a native cannot access because you're not European in your own country. Yet you say fellow immigrants are your problems. Doesn't make any sense. That's trauma. They're still going through it. And they feel it is normal. They feel it is normal. In your country, you're living in ghettos. And you feel immigrants are your problems.
As exposed,
you don't have means of production.
Popular as Johannesburg is, you still get to see ghettos. The same way you find Makoko in Lagos, and the contrast is just.
They call it that's what they call it.
It's so sad. What has been the role Ubuntu FM has played in not just South Africa, the neighboring countries down there, and how did it come about?
Okay, I joined the team in 2016. Yeah, I joined the team in 2016. They had already set up the basics when they reached out to me that they want me on the team because they believe that I will add value to the whole thing. And at first, I was surprised at what I was seeing exactly that they reached out to me. So I held on for some months. I held off for some months until at some point when the offer kept coming, I clearly saw that yeah, that's true. I could really add something. So I joined the team in 2016, and in the course of that time, when I joined, we came up with some projects, came up with some ideas, and created a platform from being just a website per se. We grew it to having an online radio station, and we got some. And by the time we grew up, we have the online radio station and all that with our sister channel as well. Then we started getting reached by DJs, as some other contributors in form of DJs and all that from Canada, from the Caribbean, from like everywhere, from every corner of the world, apart from Asia. We don't have a strong presence in Asia yet, but from every other place. We have DJs, we have weekly radio shows from somebody in Canada. We have one from someone in Brazil, and just like that from everywhere. So, and we started promoting some people from the US and all that, and they paid for promotion, and that was how we began to grow. Yeah. it's good from there, and we performed a good number of South African artists, and we have good working relationship with some record labels in South Africa and elsewhere too.
Tell us a bit about African music and how you think it has been going.
When it comes to music in Africa, I think music in Africa has grown to an extent that it cannot be now globally. Everybody in the world, I mean almost everybody, gets to enjoy the distinctiveness of African music. I know Mexicans are not really used to African music until individually they get to meet Africans, when South Africans. But the thing is, whenever they listen to African music for the first time, it sticks, right? And at the forefront of the whole movement in African movie, like promotion in African music, is Nigeria. After which you get South Africa, and then Ghana, and then elsewhere, right? So we have seen ourselves as Africans record tremendous level of success when it comes to making African music, Afrobeats, a global commodity. So and Ghana and elsewhere. So yes, African music is it can be said that it is that one thing that we're doing right in Africa. That's the one thing that we're putting out on our terms to a considerable degree in Africa. I can make the exception when it comes to facts that we don't own our platforms. Yeah, that is in that area alone. That is where we are. We've not been able to reap the full benefits of making African music a global product. Because if you study business, if you study how business, if you pay close attention to business, you realize that the people who benefit most from every industry is whoever controls distribution. The distribution takes the least risk and the highest returns. So until we begin to own our own platforms, which is going to be a tough one, because even African Americans have been talking about this, but the system is so rigged that the people who must control the distribution should not be the Africans, because that's where the real money is. That is where the real money and the real power is, distribution. So I wish Afro beats, or rather African music, and whoever are the players in the industry, I wish they begin to look into owning the distribution, owning the channels through which they distribute their music. And this cuts across all forms of arts, not just with music.
Yeah.
We should be talking about that for film. We should be talking about that as well for literature. Distribution still remains. That is why we've not been. That's why. Let me come back to literature again. That is why we have not been able to make a viable industry of the publishing industry in Nigeria, because our problem remains distribution. Because if you look at it, if you look at the population of Nigeria, South Africa, and Kenya together, right?
Yeah.
They are bigger than the entire European market put together. They are bigger than the European market, the American market put together. And the good thing about Africa, Kenya, and South Africa is that this is a homogeneous market. They all speak English. The European market is not homogeneous.
Sure.
The American market is not homogeneous.
You have to work with
because you see
translators.
Spanish. Yes, you see Spanish-speaking people in America. You see in Europe alone, they have the Germans, they have the Italians, they have the Portuguese. You understand? So, but Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, if you put them together, they are one homogeneous market that is very huge. So, if you can maintain distribution through these three markets, as an African writer, you will never want to bother with the West.
Yes.
For any reason. You will never want to. And you make good money from the whole thing. Sorry to digress.
No, there's no problem. The digression was very important, because I was talking with an economist from Greece, and he had a chance to point out the fact that even publishing in Europe got affected by the war. There's a serious politics that goes into every sector of the economy is tied one way and tied back to the government. And they make conscious effort to get to see that things get to work. When you look at our border problems, you get to understand the idea that they say it's easier for an African to travel in Europe than for an African to travel in Africa.
Travel in Africa.
And
Yes.
you will see to it that the reasons why they keep us this way, it's for a whole lot of things. A thing that the African Writer series tried to also conquer. A thing that actually endeared me to looking at that particular industry, that particular project that actually did a whole lot of good stuff. The beautiful ones are not yet born from Ghana. And Mandela wrote about his own life and his struggles, still from the same stuff. And if we can only but look at our situations and look at things down there. And as we look at wrapping up, we've looked at the music industry, we've looked at the distribution we've talked about. And if we are to hold a conspiracy about someone like Michael Jackson's death and how he ended up dying, the relationship and the tussle between the Beatles catalog and all that, you also get to have a faint idea of what distribution really means and why many persons go to their grave with their catalog and leaving it for their family. And we are not saying ordinarily, probably that was how he died. We're just saying conspiracy theory is anything to go by. You also get to see the saga between Chinua Achebe and 50 Cent and the idea of titling of his work and how Achebe was like, okay, we don't think this is possible. And the Nelson Mandela Foundation also is there to get to protect projects that try to use the name Mandela as though it has become a trademark for them, which is something you can say he rightly earned by the struggles and the things he did down there. For artists coming up, for emerging writers, you have narrated and you've explained and given us in vivid details and the scenes. I can just picture your life like in reality as though probably I'm like your shadow just standing there from what you've been able to let us know down here. For that writer currently in Nigeria, in Kenya, in South Africa, in Mongolia, in Poland, in Germany, who is still struggling to ordinarily get seen, what do you think such a person should be looking at the moment? And if we're able to exclude the people out of the global south, let's talk about those in the global south, because these are artists who will be struggling with food crisis, who will be struggling with security of living. I think I want to believe, I'm not trying to, I don't know, but I want to believe this was not your problem when you were leaving your industry.
No, I had the problem at an early stage because, like I told you, I was rebellious, and at some point, because when I quit my job, I could not pay rent again. I could not renew my rent.
Yeah.
Remember, I didn't have any plans. I didn't have any plans. So I returned to my parents' house, and my father was always giving me troubles because of the whole thing.
And
You wake up at some point you thought I was a Yahoo Yahoo, because you wake up in the middle of the night, you see me at the dining table typing, and he called me one day and said, "Please, I don't want this kind of nonsense in my house." I'm saying, "No, I'm not doing anything like this." So I left the house for him at some point. I left the house and I went to stay with one of my friends who lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. He gave me one. Chucky, nice guy, shout out to him. I lived with him for 3 years.
Wow.
So it was from his place. Yeah, from his place that I left for Cyprus.
May God bless us with friends like that and people who cannot really understand. Because someone like me, I visited a friend's family, and the mother of my friend asked him, "What is he doing? Is he Yahoo?" Because I don't buy the idea of sleeping so much when you ordinarily have a whole lot to do. I know you have to checkmate your health and all that, but I have never listened to the idea of that so much. The length of time people get to sleep. When your situation is the way your situation is, you ordinarily have to walk around the clock and walk and see that things get to work out well for you. So you fit in very well within this particular frame of work of that emerging artist, of that body poet, and someone who is actually dreaming and thinking of how to ordinarily make it against the odds down there. What would be your advice to such a person? How should such a person get to go at life, and how should he tackle life?
First of all, the person should understand that, first of all, the person should see their work, their books, it's a product, right?
Yeah.
That need to be consumed, that need to be taken to people who would have need for them. They should see their work as a product.
Yeah.
I know that some of us are so sucked into the whole artistic process that we just envision being a writer, right? We have the mindset of that there's a lifestyle attached to being a writer, so we're more taken by the lifestyle than what it really entails.
Yeah.
We have a lot of that. We have a whole lot of that, and that is why at some point they get frustrated, and at some point they tend to give up, and that's why at some point they get so bitter. That's why there's so much bitterness within the Nigerian literary community. Like there's so much bitterness, there's unwarranted envy and everything because of these things. Because some of them don't even know why they got into it. They romanticize the whole thing, and by that reality confronted them, they just didn't know how to react anymore.
Yeah, too
right?
old to get to
And that's why when you see another person doing something different, they feel jealous and envious, but they don't understand these things, right? So my advice to the person is this: understand that your work is products. Pay attention to the behavioral patterns of your target audience.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should find that, because I mean, I have few friends within the Nigerian writing community, few of them, right, that I relate with. It is not by design. I'm a very private person, and I didn't get to link up with the Nigerian community before I left, and even up to now, it's just not by design. Actually, it just happened, right? So there is my friend Kelvin Kelman. We're both close. Sometimes we discuss, and he has, sorry to say it, sorry to say this, but there's a way he sees life, there's a way he sees creativity that I see it differently. So when you tell me that Ikenna, what I don't like is that you're too pragmatic, that you see everything in terms of figures, you see everything in terms of you're too pragmatic, that you're not an idealist, right? So for me, I tell him that I see your idealism as a mistake, because it makes you, because he's a perfectionist. I always tell him that he wants it to be perfect. There's a way he sees things and all that. He takes time, and I'm telling him that you're taking your time. This is how you expect life to be, but life doesn't. You wake up tomorrow dead. Do today. You don't have to be a perfectionist.
Yeah.
So the thing is, there are many of us who are like that. We feel that there's, many of Nigerian writers that go and self-publish, they'll feel that they're giving them a bad advice. Many of them, they have this belief that they write a very good book, and they would be like Chimamanda or Akwe or any of them, that there's a publisher from the US who will give them advance, maybe 50,000, 60,000 or and all that. Now, there was a hashtag that trended 2 years ago on Twitter. Publishing paid me. Did you follow up on that?
Yeah.
Right. Do you know why that hashtag was stopped immediately? The Europeans, the people of European descent, Americans and all of that, they came to realize that the industry was rigged against African writers.
Mm-hmm.
There was no African writer that got an advance of up to $600,000.
Yeah.
But there were many European writers who were declaring that they got as much as $1 million in advance.
Of course.
You understand? So it got so embarrassing for them that they had to stop it. But at least it revealed something.
Yeah.
Right? That it is still the same thing that plays out in geopolitics, international geopolitics. They sat down. These are people these are people who go out to plunder countries to bring wealth into their land.
America
right?
First, for
example. And they have decided that this is a portion that will be given to our writing. So you expect other people to go out and plunder lands and come back and give you and give you an equal place at the table. No, it doesn't work like that. There's this saying that back then in America, a publisher would call another publisher, how many niggers do you have on your plantation, right? They want to know the number of Africans you get. So the thing is, they want just one African on their platform or all of that to give the illusion of inclusivity.
Yeah.
It's just an illusion, just to give the illusion of inclusivity, inclusivity. But that's not so in practice. So you, as a young African, as a young Nigerian writer, aiming to be at that table where you feed up off the crumbs, because that is the highest level that will be made to aim for as Africans. So eat off the crumbs or the leftovers. It's not sustainable. And if you go through, if you read the history of Flora Nwapa, Flora Nwapa was published in the UK.
Yeah.
But you notice that she was not being promoted like every other writers.
Yeah.
So she had to go to the UK to buy back the rights of her books. And she opened up Canal Press in a way, I think. And then she started publishing her book and promoting her book.
Yeah.
But she realized the whole shadow behind the whole thing, that they just want to give you that sense of inclusivity, but in reality, I mean, we're just made for the crumbs. They just want it. And if you look at the stories that they pick, these are stories that suit the narrative that they want to be putting out about Africans. You get? So that is how it is. So to the young African, if you want to shoot for the stars, so to say, and to you the stars is eating all the crumbs of white public. Of course, even the crumbs is a lot of money. Good luck, right? But at the same time, if you want to be practical, you must understand that you have to take your destiny in your hands. See your work as a product.
Yeah.
But first of all, if you can, self-publish. Because, I mean, publishers in Nigeria are struggling. These guys going to debts. They borrow money. They publish books. They give to bookshops. Bookshops sell and don't remit money. I mean, I have a bookshop, Joy Feed Africa, that took my book. I signed a contract with them. It's been more than a year now. And they've not remitted any money to me.
What's the name of the publisher, the distributor?
Joy Feed Africa.
Oh, true.
They've not remitted any money to me. And they'll keep sending me emails. We will remit your money at the end of this month. They will send me their sales reports. We will remit money at the end of this month. Send us your account number. I'll send the account number. They will not send it anymore.
Wow.
The last one that they sent, I just replied, Nigerians. That's what I replied. So that is, and I'm not the only one. Publishers are going through the same thing. Publishers are going through it. So it is not easy. It is not easier. So that's where we have a lot to do as creatives. We cannot, I mean, even myself who is here, I'm not living my best life. I would prefer that I'm in Nigeria, I'm in Nigeria calling the shots. I prefer I'm in Nigeria doing the same thing I'm doing in Mexico, in Nigeria. Bringing people from Mexico, from everywhere to Nigeria to come and buy rights.
Yeah.
Translation rights, film rights. I'll prefer to be doing this thing in Nigeria. But you know how Nigeria is.
Yeah.
Even with all the threats that I'm getting for publishing Yahoo Yahoo. So it's how it is in Nigeria. It's a crazy.
It's quite very unfortunate. I think Nnedi Okorafor also recently is complaining as it concerns the rights of one of our novels. Like I think one of our first shots when she started publishing her science fic and all that, and it just shows. I brought that up because of when you talked about Flora Nwapa and all that, and when I discussed with Tim Anthony in Germany, he talked about the bitterness of failed writers who now do gatekeeping. And you think that is also prevalent in the Nigerian scene in terms of gatekeeping?
Yes. I know a good number of Nigerian platforms that blocked me on Twitter.
They blocked you?
Yes. I don't know why. There are a good number of Nigerian platforms that blocked me on Twitter. I don't know why.
You have not.
And okay. No. I think what made that thing was because there was a time Otosirese had that issue with El-Rufai.
Yeah.
Yeah, with British paper. Sorry. For me, I don't like I respect British people and what they stand for, because I respect Afrocentric platforms. But it's my opinion that they should be protected at every cost because we don't have enough of them. Yes. So it is my stance that we protect every Afrocentric literary platforms at every cost, right? So for me, I was against the fact that El-Rufai was playing the kind of games he was playing in the literary industry, pitching one person against the other and all that. I just didn't like it.
And it's still going on down here. And it's something
Yes.
that saw David leave Cambridge and saw Onyeka leave Oxford and the whole stuff that went down there. And
Exactly.
Rutaya, the former general, he has an initiative named after him, and a whole lot of other things going down there. And
yes, well, I do respect El-Rufai. Actually, I respect him for because even if you no matter how bad you are, for the fact that you
put in the money,
you put in money in literary or artistic works. I value the fact that you are trying to preserve
something
history, like you're trying to preserve something that is too costly to be toyed with.
Right.
You understand? So that people who come after will be, because these things will write, these things will do, are not for now, they're for posterity, right? So whoever is visionary enough, no matter their character flaws, whoever is visionary enough, right, to invest in these things, they have my utmost respect. However, the fact that we have many of our writers working as gatekeepers, many of our writers working as gatekeepers, and the prevalence of this in Nigeria, well, I wonder what they are gatekeeping. Because, what exactly are they gatekeeping? Is it a pot of gold or what? What is that thing? Like, how much art fans can the Nigerian population has give to somebody that they'll be gatekeeping? Like, what exactly? The highest thing that they could be gatekeeping could be, let me say, the LNG price. That could be the highest. And then what exactly?
Maybe they'll stop you from getting publicity.
Nobody should take them seriously. Because they're not gatekeeping anything. What is there to gatekeep? What? So if you want to, like I said, the moment you begin to treat your work as a product, the moment you're able to see through all this facade, right? If what's come to worst, you get register a publishing house. If you don't want to look as a self-publisher, publish your book. Take your book to book fairs. Wherever, if you have the money, if you want to go to London Book Fair, if you want to go to wherever it is you want to go to, like my French publishers, I met them at the London Book Fair. I paid for my flights. I paid for my accommodation in London. I was there at the event for 3 days, hawking my book in London.
Followed your journey, and I followed your journey even to I followed your journey up to that particular place,
and while I was in London, there was another big man publishing author. He said he texted me for the first time that, hello, Ikenna, please, I would like to talk to you. I said, okay, no problem, give me a few minutes. So we started talking. He introduced himself. I said, yeah, I know who you are. I know we're both under this umbrella. So he said he doesn't know why Onyeka did not do this for him. I called him. I said, see, your book is among the catalog on display here. It's among the books on display here, but you're not here. Do you think it's Onyeka that gave me money to come to London? That I paid for that. Do you know how much I'm spending a day? I spent 200 pounds per day for the 4 days I was there. I paid for my flight tickets. The only thing Onyeka did for me was to give me invitation, and I went to the embassy and got a visa, and then I went there for the whole thing. I was there hustling for my even though the while I went to France, I paid for my flight ticket.
That's what I was talking about. When you got a rejection and the event that played out up until when the book was published.
Even when I went for my visa application, they refused me a visa, and I was angry that why should you refuse me a visa? Why do I look like a flight risk? So when they gave me a visa, I went there with my assistant, paid our flight ticket, paid for accommodation and everything. I went for the first day, went for the second day, and then they invited me for what's it called? What's the name of this? In Strasbourg, this other one they invited me for in Strasbourg.
Okay.
They won't do capital, yes. They gave Strasbourg the title, so they invited me there, and I couldn't come because I had to choose between Mexico and this place. And Onyeka asked me that, okay, he was going to pay part of my flight to Mexico. And I saw that, okay, this person is paying for part of my flight. This other place, I'm going to spend money and go to Strasbourg and get up for myself and all that. Okay, why not I just go here? So I didn't go for Strasbourg. I went here, and the people at Strasbourg are angry. He didn't pay for my flight tickets. So why should they dictate if I'm to come or not? You understand? The thing is, this is me pushing my work. This is me investing money I would have used in buying a car in Nigeria, a second-hand car in Nigeria. Yeah, a second-hand car in Nigeria. You know, or this is money I would have used to do any of the many things that Nigerians would rather do. I'm putting it into the promotion of my work because I understand that, okay, this is what I want out of the whole thing. I see my work as a product. I know that I have to invest in it until such a time that I begin to benefit very well from it. So it's the advice I will always give to young people that you need to take your destiny in your hands. Sometimes, even when you have a publisher, you don't just go to sleep because the publisher as well, they incur costs. They incur some cost in making sure that they sell your work and make a profit, you know, and recover whatever advance they must have given to you before they begin to remit your royalties, pending when your contract with them expires.
And as we wrap up here, it is if there's anything we can take away from the stories down here is the fact that what it has been that has been resonating with the whole conversation is the idea of taking things into your hands, the idea of going to do something, the idea of wanting to do something, the idea of pushing forward, the idea of pushing and selling yourself out there. And it has been a pleasure. It has been a pleasure having to talk to our guest today. I didn't envisage a conversation that would span this long, but they say when the well is deep, you know the source of water coming down there also will get to go down the way it gets to go down. We've been talking about Yahoo Yahoo. It has a double but then probably would have added some exclamation. And the book is not about company Yahoo. The book is about what that company gave a whole lot of persons, and it is not something peculiar to Nigeria. We have been talking about the involvement of a whole lot of persons in the crime industry and in different cartels that ordinarily have come to be the current reality we face in the world. We've talked about South Africa, we've talked about xenophobia, we've talked about Nigeria, we've talked about the myth being sold, we've talked about the need for children to ordinarily come to read. We've talked about the need for people ordinarily to come to do things the way they ordinarily are supposed to do things. We've talked about the problem and the place where we have placed our priorities. We place our priorities in the wrong places. We felt the need as Nigerians, as Africans, as global citizens to almost build wealth without enterprise, to almost get to look at things that are ephemeral as opposed to things that are lasting. Chinua Achebe today didn't become a doctor, but the son is a doctor. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie today is not a doctor, but she's doing so well in whatever she's doing. It is the message that we are taking away from here that people should look at things and look at opportunities and spot those opportunities. But also you have to know that you cannot have it both ways. Either you're looking at the old adage that says you cannot eat your cake and have it, or you're looking at the current understanding of you cannot have your cake and eat it. You have to understand the idea of the importance of now, the importance of doing things in the moment, the importance of taking your destiny in your hand. This is the message our guest and the author will be interviewing today has left for us to wonder about, think about. And it is a pleasure. It's a pleasure for me, particularly, coming to assess your work. And despite the fact that I go about reading people's work, and sometimes I write to them, but most of the times I don't. These guests we're having today, someone I've hinted, it's not 1 year, it's not 2 years. I'm like, keeping the idea of, I'll reach out to you, we'll talk about this, and it doesn't really feel right. Or maybe sometimes I'm just being reluctant, and maybe sometimes I read their works and I'm like, probably I don't really understand if I should be reaching out. And the idea of also the fear of people looking at you as needing something, there's that fear also of people get to perceive people as you are coming to me probably because you need something or because you need a favor, as opposed to having a real time dialogue. And I pray going forward, I also come out of that shackle of comfortably reaching out to people. And
No, you should. I understand you because sorry to interrupt, because myself I have that as well when you start to people, because there's this thing about us writers. Not all of us are open-minded.
yeah,
You know, I know how it is, because at some point I stopped reaching out to writers for blogs, because sometimes you reach out to them for blogs, and just a line, and just give me a line, and you
it's
see
just
them
like
giving you, telling you,
it's just
coming
like
up with excuses.
it's just like you need to give them money. There are a couple of persons you want to get to talk to, and they're like, "Why do you want to talk to me? I've sent the videographer fully paid by the hour, and to go run an interview for me in Lagos. The rest is history, and it's not just in Lagos, in Abuja also. It's like it's all in and about. Oh, we've planned this; it's going to happen, and then the guy shows up, and one thing or the other just leads to something else. And while there's a whole lot in the background and taking my time to do a whole lot of stuff as a content distribution, all that, it also holds way to say that you're very open-minded and you are accessible. And it's the way I sometimes get to talk to people and get to talk about their works and how I get to access them easily. Not necessarily because they're not supposed to be like that, but this craze of celebrity type.
Yes.
The
I
moment
remember I said something about people that are after the lifestyle and
yeah,
not just seeing the work, see about the work they tend to do.
as a
Yeah.
celebrity, I shouldn't be known. Like there's this level of obscurity that is supposed to surround me, and it's supposed to go like that, as opposed to a thing like the West. I read an article, I see an email to get to write to, and I write to immediately. Chinua,
SL-wise, I think, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I reached out to his colleagues when he was still alive. This is a man that died in 2005. How old was I in 2005? But there were emails that were made available to old publications, and they maintain these mails because I'm also working on a whole lot of. I just think it's something that we are not really paying attention to. So when I reached out, they were like eager to help. They were like, he was a close colleague and associate with us. He did this. He was a good man. He was a kind man, and the fact that you can assess these people, and I think if he was alive, it's somebody that ordinarily would have been able to be assessed. And I think we also have to look at that particular fact that people shouldn't be so obscure. But I also understand how many persons come to misuse opportunities. But it doesn't go to say that since someone has done something wrong, you should now do something wrong to prove a right case. Like how people say, two wrongs cannot make a right. And on that,
That's what.
we have been able to tell you, indeed, we are not having a boring conversation, because many persons ask me, why did you choose boring conversations? And I'm like, ask my younger sister. My younger sister was like, as far as I was born, I have a younger sister who is 21, and I have another one who is 19. And they keep on telling me, since we came to this world, we have never heard of you talk about, just day-to-day events. And at what point do you just relax, chill, not talk about Nigeria, not talk about this, that you talk about boring stuff so much? And when I ask them, what do they mean by boring stuff? They're like, it's not as if they are boring, but there are things the normal person don't want to get involved in because it leads you to despair. So you leave it there. And I believe we've not had a boring conversation today, because
No,
the
not.
kind of boring conversation is to rather talk about boring stuff for people who think they are boring and bring it to the end of that conversation and prove to them that politics is not boring. Reading the book is not boring. Listening to good music and listening to good and watching good art and watching good films. These are not boring things. They are things that get to enrich your mind. As opposed to the junk of just going through TikTok and going through different things and looking at things that we are just while away time. Why not spend the time nicely? And I guess I've been able to avail us the chance to have some very meaningful conversations. We are very grateful and we hope to see more come from where this has come. It is our prayer that to whom more is how do they say it?
To whom more is given, more is expected. To whom more is given, more is expected.
Yeah, more is expected. To whom more is given,
Yes.
more is expected. The reward for hard work is more work. And
That's right.
if we should take a break, what should we be expecting apart from Yahoo Yahoo? We're expecting the year is still young. We saw you did a couple of publications last year and the year before. After Yahoo Yahoo, what are we expecting? Are we expecting the sequel to the Deportee, or is it supposed to? Is it going to just be a sequel, or is it a trilogy?
It's supposed to be a trilogy. It's supposed to be a trilogy, right? Okay. I would see. I've not confirmed yet, but I will see the possibility of putting that one out this year. However, there are two on the pipeline. Like there are two on the pipeline, like on the publishing schedule for the new publishing. Right. It's a Turkish series. It's a novel setting. It's a series. Book 1 and 2 will be out this year. If everything goes well. It's on the published schedule right now, waiting to go to the printers. The two of them, the both of them. It's about Fatima Ozdemir. Is a Turkish character, a Turkish policewoman. Who grew up in the West, who spent time in the West. Not grew up, she was married to a Westerner, and after an ugly divorce, she came back to Turkey, joined the police force to become a patriot. But then she always has a way of of resolving issues through unconventional means. She always gets involved with. They will always give her a case to solve, and because of solving it, she gets involved with terrorists. And all of that, and then she solves the case using unconventional methods. And that's the book 1 is set in Istanbul, the book 2 is set in Antalya, the book 3 is set in Izmir. So that's how it's a 5-book series, each of them in 5 major cities in Turkey. So book 1 and book 2, which is the one set in Istanbul and the one set in Antalya, comes out this year, hopefully. If everything goes well.
And I think Onyeka is also working on something similar, set in different cities. And
yes, actually, he is the one who brought this whole idea, who sold to me the idea of the Turkey series. He told me that you've lived in Turkey for 4 years, right? You spend a lot of time there. Why not do this? Have a female character, because these are people that they want to see a feminist, kind of work that is to them. And of course, there's a Nigerian character in each of the series. She's an ex-lover of the Turkish woman, but who now works as her sidekick. He's not a policeman. He's just a regular guy in Turkey trying to earn a living. But every now and then, when there's trouble, he gets involved as well. He's like the muscle behind some of the shady things that they have to do to be able to resolve the case.
And just as an aside, my journey and my work has been highly supported by two Turkish family actually.
Wow.
And they're nice people to be around with, and I have a fond memory and serious affiliation to Istanbul, and it holds a dear place for me, and it's just fascinating how you walk and how you go about this. We are beating against time, but how do you write? You write one thing at a time, or you write multiple stuff as you go?
No. One thing, I don't multitask. One thing at a time. No, I don't multitask.
You pick a work?
Actually, there's a way I do. I pick a work, right? I focus my intensity on it.
Yeah.
I give myself a target that, okay, in a day, a goal, I won't go beyond 1,500 words or 2,000 words, no matter how inspired I feel.
Yeah.
So I choose two periods. I could write in the morning and then in the evening.
Okay.
And I sleep a lot in between, okay? And I do other things in between. But I make sure that this is my target. I don't exceed the word count so that I do not pump in a whole lot of job and extend the editing process.
Sure.
Because if you load your words with substance without junk, right, it makes editing very easy for you.
Yeah.
But if you believe that you must write first draft, second draft, third draft, fourth draft, and all that, you spend a lot of time. So it's not all about chasing the word count to pump a whole lot of trash into it. And that is why editors love working with me. Every editor I've worked with, and each of my work have a particular editor that's suitable for it. There are some of the works, and I know editors I work with, and some of them could know I'm working. They reach out to me. They say, "Please, I'd like to edit this your work," and I'll say, "No, it's not for you. I know it's suitable for." So it might be a new person. I'll reach out to the person and say, "Please, I've heard about you. I know you're suitable for this thing.
Okay.
How much is the fee?" Yeah. So that's how I work. So, and they like it because it doesn't bore them. It doesn't seem to them like work because they've come to realize how I write, that I do not load my work with a lot of junk. And for somebody like me who has a low attention span when it comes to reading or consuming or consuming content, I have a low attention span. And I tend to believe that every reader is like that. So I try to make sure that I do not bore them, or I do not, maybe in the course of describing, I veer off so much that I lose their attention. So I try to catch you from the beginning, hold you on until the very last. That's always my target.
We have had many times to get to end, but we have almost refused to end. We have had so many ends that have led to many beginnings, and it is just to tell you the type of person we have been talking to. And he has written a whole lot of stuff. We'll add the links to all his works down here, and you get to go check it out. Don't check it out because I am saying you should go check it out, but at least also check it out because I am saying you should check it out and reach out and say, I like what you're doing, I like the work, and
I'm very accessible. I'm very accessible.
so you can find him on the social media space. He's very active. He posts at least once in 2 days, and he doesn't go on sabbatical. And you find almost everything he puts out there very, very important. There's almost nothing to waste. Like the idea of Jesus and the bread. There's nothing that should go to waste, and there's a whole lot out there. So look out and keep your money. Keep your money. It's very important. Keep your money. We know things are very expensive abroad, but keep your money. This one is something you have to look out for. It's something you should appreciate. And if you're a writer out there, read other writers' work, read other creative work, reach out for collaboration and look at how you can get to go about things. And let peace and love lead, and let the literary space back home get to prosper. This year, we don't hope to see any literary magazine get to fold up or crumble. The Paris reviewer,
It hurts me personally whenever I see something like that.
I would tell people how angry I was when Okada books folded up, and a whole lot of other stuff that you almost hear nothing from again. And I just pray we get to get things right and we get to succeed. And it is my desire and my hope that we'll get things right this time around. My name is Biringkpa Mecca, and I've been talking with
Ikenna Okeh.
Bye bye. See you next time.